Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Montgomery County Council meeting. Today is October 7th. I do just want to note, as it is October 7th, we know that for many in our community, this is a day that is very difficult for them, and we just want to let everyone know today that you are in our hearts and our minds as you go through today. And with that, we have two proclamations today. The first one is recognizing International Day of the Girl, and I'm going to ask the folks from Community Bridges to come on down and join me. This is very tall, Sarah. All right, well, welcome everyone to our first proclamation today. It is International Day of the Girl Proclamation, and today we are joined by Community Bridges to recognize it, and I am thrilled to have everyone here from Community Bridges, and we'll let them introduce themselves in a minute. But this is a day that we celebrate because it is a day to raise awareness about gender inequalities and highlight the opportunities for young girls to show leadership. And I know that these young girls and many of the young girls and all the young girls who participate in Community Bridges show leadership every day. You know, many times people talk about young people as the next generation of leaders. Well, I can tell you that I have visited, and I know many of the young girls in Community Bridges and the folks who work there, and I can tell you they are not the future leaders. They are the leaders today in our community. And it is because of organizations like Community Bridges and their families and their schools that support them, that work with them day in and day out. So we are so glad today to recognize International Day of the Girl Child, and I'm going to turn it over. I'm just going to give the mic to everyone so that they can introduce themselves today.
Hi, my name is Lavea, and I go to Silver Spring International. Hi, my name is Gabriela, and I go to Roland Terrace Elementary School.
Hi, my name is Ashley Vasquez Ramos, and I go to Newport Middle School.
Hi, my name is Evelyn Vasquez Ramos. I go to Highland Elementary.
Great. Well, Shannon's going to go, but if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Isabel Argati. I'm the Deputy Director of Programs at Community Bridges.
Hello, my name is Jane D'Angeli. I'm the Director of College Access and Success Programs with Community Bridges.
Hi, my name is Lilia, and I'm from Ukraine. I'm head of NGO, Youth NGO in Ukraine, and here I am with Community Bridges as a fellow, as a professional fellow.
And Shannon, you can. Okay, great.
I'll just hold the mic. Good morning. I'm Shannon Van Thomas. I'm the Executive Director of Community Bridges. I want to thank Council President Stewart for bringing us here today to honor International Day of the Girl, which is actually celebrated this Saturday, October 11th. And it's a day to celebrate girls around the world and educational opportunities that are equal for all girls. And it's something we truly believe in. For 28 years, Community Bridges has been empowering our young women here in our community to be strong leaders, engaged students, and engaged community members. And I'm really excited that we have all four of the girls that introduce themselves today are part of our Youth Advisory Committee. So they're not just part of the program at their school, they are representing the girls across the county and helping to make decisions and impact on our organization. And super proud that Lily is here with us today. She's our fellow, and as she said, she's from Ukraine. So we truly are celebrating International Day of the Girl and girls around the world today. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for all your work that you do in the community. I'm just going to hold it. And I'm going to read the proclamation now. Whereas the United Nations in 2012 declared that October 11th will annually be celebrated as the International Day of the Girl Child to help galvanize worldwide enthusiasm for goals to better girls' lives and provide an opportunity for them to show leadership and reach their full potential. And whereas the special day promotes girls' human rights, highlights gender inequalities that remain between girls and boys, and addresses the various forms of discrimination and abuse suffered by girls around the world. And whereas Community Bridges' mission is to empower girls from diverse backgrounds to become exceptional students, positive leaders, and healthy young women. And whereas Community Bridges celebrates the role Montgomery County has played in giving children access to educational resources, mentoring, and college access programs, and so much more. Community Bridges will continue to advocate for the preservation of these services, especially for those girls. And whereas girls are challenging stereotypes and breaking through barriers of exclusion, including those affecting children with disabilities and communities long impacted by systemic racism, and through their roles as entrepreneurs, innovators, and leaders of global change, they are building a more inclusive world for themselves and the generations to come. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby proclaims October 11th, 2025 as the International Day of the Girl Child in Montgomery County, and thanks Community Bridges and its partnering girls and women's organizations for all they do to help girls thrive, presented on this day, the 7th of October in the year 2025. So thank you, everyone. I will give one of these to you, and we have a couple of other proclamations, and then we'll take a picture.
Oh, yeah. Oh, never mind. Oh. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Don't stoop down. Don't stoop. All right.
Girls.
I've heard of a man.
And let us know how you're doing. I'm sure there's a number of people who will talk to you about, being a judge and all that kind of stuff. Oh no, you're the judge, right? Okay, great, awesome. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next proclamation is recognizing National Farmers Day, and Councilmember Sales is leading this one.
Good morning, everyone that's here for National Farmers Appreciation Day. Please come and join me. Thank you so much for being here. We just enjoyed a lovely breakfast catered by Dawson's Market. We know Dawson's Market moved from Rockville Town Center, and they are now housed in Montgomery College. So please check them out. University's at Shady Grove. Thank you. See, you always have to have good colleagues around you. All right. All right. Yes, everyone come on down. Come on down. Come on down, Mr. Hoeing. Yep. Let's go, Mr. President. All right. So good morning, everyone. I'm Council Member Lori Ann Sales, and I am having everyone here. Let's make sure we take up the whole galley. Just wanted to mention that Farmers Appreciation Day is officially celebrated on October 12th, but I don't think anyone's going to show up at the council on a Sunday, so we are celebrating it today. My SMART agenda that I champion for all of my policy issues talks about advancing local food production in our ag reserve. And so this morning, this is our third year honoring our farmers. The agricultural reserve was preserved in our county back in the 80s, and our farmers have been great stewards along with the council members, the commissioners, and the town council of Poolesville. So I'm so glad to have so many of them here joining us this morning. And so we want to ensure that the ag reserve's potential for food production, crop planting and harvesting, irrigation, equestrian activities, sustainable energy sources, wildlife habitats, recreational opportunities, and more continue to thrive in the Up County. The ag reserve is not just a picturesque landscape, it's a powerhouse industry that generates over $280 million in revenue for Montgomery County. Plays a critical role in our regional economic growth and is a source of pride for our residents. And we all share its responsibility in caring for this natural resource. Today's farms and organizations that have joined us today have been making a vital opportunity in our annual farm tour, our harvest sale. In July, they've been making it very successful. They are the cornerstone of the reserve, and we value everything that they do. We also want to express our appreciation to the Office of Agriculture's efforts under new director. Well, I guess he's not so new now. It's been over a year. Mike Sheffield, his leadership in supporting our county's farmers so that they can continue to thrive and succeed. That's why my colleagues and I on the council unanimously approved a fiscal year 26 budget of $1.5 million for the Office of Ag, an increase of $1.4 million from the FY25 budget. So before we continue, I did want to thank my team for all of their work in getting this breakfast together and getting so many of our ag representatives here. Now I have the honor of inviting Mike Sheffield, Director of Agricultural Services for Montgomery County, followed by Heather Bruskin with the Office of Food Systems Resilience, and Eric Spates, Vice President of the Montgomery County Farm Bureau, to give us brief remarks. And then we will read the official proclamation. So before we hear from our speakers, I just wanted to have everyone quickly introduce themselves, name and title, or name and farm.
All right, thank you. Jim Brown, President of the Poolesville Town Commissioners.
I'm Link Hoeing with the Fair Access Committee from Poolesville.
Lorian McCauley, Agricultural and Sustainability Specialist at Montgomery County Food Council.
Natalia Salazar, Business Development Specialist at the County Office of Agriculture.
Ellen Gordon, I'm a board member of Sugarloaf Citizens Association, and we actually do have a farm named Linden Farm.
Mike Shuffle with the county's Office of Ag.
Elizabeth Tuen with the Montgomery County Food Council.
Jenna Umbriak, Director of Community Impact at Manna Food Center.
Mike Wyan, Office of Agriculture.
Charles Choti, I work for AgriThrive, it's a non-profit organization. Thank you.
Heather Bruskin with the Office of Food Systems Resilience.
Jufrina Choti with AgriThrive.
Eric Spates, farmer in Poolesville and Vice President of Montgomery County Farm Bureau.
Janet Terry, President of Only Farmers Market.
Nadine Mort, Board Member of Olney Farmers Market.
Kelly Groff, Visit Montgomery.
Kathy Durbin, Alcohol Beverage Services, Montgomery County.
And Alan Hobbs, one of the commissioners of Poolesville.
Just like the Ag Reserve, we start in with Poolesville. All right, Heather, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Bruskin. I'm with the Office of Food Systems Resilience in the county government. I had remarked to someone that the weather forecast for today was to get some rain, and in fact it's sunny, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate National Farmers Day than with unpredictable weather. So but I really appreciate how much there is to celebrate today, and so thank you to Councilmember Sales and the entire County Council for bringing us together to explore how our farmers support everything from economic and workforce development to protecting our natural resources and education and many things in between. But what I'd like to highlight and lift up for everyone today is how so many of our agricultural producers in Montgomery County provide nourishment to our community in the truest sense of the word by feeding our neighbors with the fruits and vegetables and livestock that they raise and the value-added products that they produce. And yet we know here in the county that the bounty of the food that's available in our grocery stores and farmers markets and restaurants is not necessarily available to everyone. And in fact, we have over 300,000 of our residents here in the county who are at risk for hunger. And I think we recognize that that number may be growing. And so our office was created 3 years ago, saying that if we know that we have issues with food access and with the ability to produce food here in the county, we need to be more resilient for the future, and we need a strategy. So we look at those issues and opportunities that are unique to food through its own lens. And so that's why I'm incredibly proud to be a part of initiatives like Farm to Food Bank and the Food is Medicine program and a number of other initiatives that work through our office that invest over $2 million in county funds every year in the farmers that you see here and in the other food producers, over 30 different food producing farms in the county every year. And so it's an honor to have a role to play in connecting that bounty with all of our residents so that we can ensure that we're investing in their health and security nutrition-wise for the future, and so that they can thrive in school and in workplaces, and that we will have a stronger supply chain and access to food for years to come. And so thank you for the chance to get to be here with all of you today.
Thank you, Heather. Now we're going to hear from Mr. Spite.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Sales, for inviting us here. And really for the whole council and even our county executive for continuing to engage with us and hear our voices. We know we're not many people, but we feel like we have a big impact, and sometimes we have big concerns. And especially want to thank you for funding the Office of Agriculture. You know, they certainly do a lot for us in the whole ag community. So I'm here representing the Montgomery County Farm Bureau, an organization started in 1923 that in the county represents 260 farm families, agribusinesses, and friends of agriculture. We work on our own and with other like-minded organizations, engaging council members, state legislators, and local leaders to foster an environment that's conducive to successful agricultural enterprises. And we certainly appreciate the help you've given us in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spate. And last but certainly not least, Director from the Office of Agriculture, Mr. Mike Sheffel.
So, good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Sheffel with the county's Office of Ag. I want to thank the council member, Lorianne. We appreciate you putting on this breakfast for us. The whole council at whole, we appreciate you. The farmers hear you and really, truly appreciate your support here. As you can see, in this county of 1.1 million people, it doesn't just take the farmers. There's a lot of interest in not only what the farmers do, but helping the farmers. We have our food support groups here. We have the Office of Food System Resilience in front of us. We have our partners here with the Park and Planning Commission who are truly helpful to what we do in agriculture. The county executive has been greatly supportive of our office, as you've just heard. But this isn't just about who is in front of you today. This really is about the next generation of farmers. So if you find it in your heart, we have about 3,000 fourth graders coming to the Ag History Farm Park this month. So we need people to shepherd those kids along. We always need volunteers with our Close Encounters with Agriculture program. So if you want to be a volunteer, we'd be happy to take you. I'm also very proud to announce that we, Office of Ag, and with the support of the county executive, have partnered with the Junior Achievement Finance Park down in Thomas Edison with their Finance Park program. So we have now an agricultural storefront in that high school, really, where all the 7th graders come through and learn to make financial decisions about life, but also how important, as Heather Bruskin said, that this food is nourishment, and it's important to really know where your food comes from and how to make smart financial decisions about that. But with that, thank you.
And with that, we will read the proclamation. So the County Council of Maryland, Montgomery County, Maryland proclamation, whereas National Farmers Day, a significant occasion that honors the farmers whose commitment to producing nutritious, sustainable, and high-quality food sustains our communities, fuels economic growth across industries, and feeds our nation, is of utmost importance. And whereas in 1980, Montgomery County established the 93,000-acre agricultural reserve, a pivotal resource that is equivalent to almost 1/3 of the county's land resources. Our reserve is proudly home to nearly 600 farms, 92% of which are family-run operations, contributing almost $300 million annually to the county's economy, a testament to the resilience and hard work of our local farmers. And whereas our diverse agricultural economy encompasses traditional agriculture, horticulture, nurseries, landscaping, sod farms, and the equine industry, and serves as a vital contributor to our community. Traditional agriculture generating 70 million plus, the horticulture industry contributing over 154 million, and the equine industry adding over 84 million. And whereas Montgomery County has over 1,000 agricultural producers, yet less than 8% are people of color, with fewer than 100 representing Black, Asian, Latinx, or Indigenous ancestry. Recognizing this disparity, the county is dedicated to providing targeted resources to historically disenfranchised farmers of color, ensuring equitable participation in the agriculture sector. And whereas a variety of organizations assist farmers in Montgomery County, Maryland, Montgomery County Farm Bureau, Montgomery County Agricultural Producers Agricultural Advisory Committee, and Agricultural Preservation Advisory Board, Montgomery County Farmers Markets, University of Maryland Extension, Montgomery Soil Conservation District, and Farm Services Agency. And whereas Montgomery County is committed to building a more inclusive agricultural landscape by supporting local farmers and expanding farmers markets so that all residents, including those in underserved areas, have access to fresh local food. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, hereby recognizes National Farmers Day as a meaningful opportunity to express our collective appreciation for farmers and to celebrate their immeasurable contributions to our economy, food security, and innovation that sustain us year-round. We are deeply grateful for their hard work and dedication. Presented on this 7th day of October in the year 2025 by Council Member Lorianne Sales and Council President Kate Stewart. And thank you, everyone. We're going to take a quick picture, but please put November 10th on your calendar for the Farm to Table Symposium. It's a free event that we are holding at Crossvines from 8 to 1. You can check this out and let us know if you have any questions by contacting my office. Thank you so much.
right. Great. Well, thank you to all of our farmers. Thank you to Councilmember Sales for the lovely breakfast this morning. We are now going to turn to general business. There are no announcements and no minutes for approval, so we're moving on to agenda item number 1, and this is the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission semi-annual presentation to the council. I'm glad to see you all here. I will turn it over first, I think, to Ms. Dunn to introduce this, and I just want to say welcome to many of our planning board members. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll start digging in. Ms. Dunn?
Thank you and good morning, Council. Yes, this is one of 2 semi-annual reports that the Council body receives in a year. This one always comes in the fall. It's really a check-in. As you know, the one that occurs in the springtime is pre-budget, and it focuses on sort of the work program and budget items. But this one is, again, they're both about accomplishments and what's happening at both the parks and the planning departments. And it's their opportunity to check in with the council and to provide you with this information. So I'm not going to steal any of their time. I thank them for being here and look forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Great. Terrific.
Well, I'll
Chair Harris?
I'll get us going. Good morning, Council President Stewart, Vice President Jawando, and members of the council. For the record, I'm Artie Harris, Chair of the Planning Board. Thank you for this opportunity to share highlights of the Planning Board, the Planning Department, and Parks' most recent accomplishments and updates on our ongoing efforts to make Montgomery County the premier destination to invest in, live, work, play, and thrive. Earlier this month, I had the opportunity to play and take advantage of our wonderful resources and enjoy a Saturday morning kayak. If you haven't been out on one of our lakes, let's get you out there. Before I turn it over to the directors, I want to share a few updates from my end. On September 22nd, all the members of the Planning Board were able to join together for a tour of the Clarksburg Gateway Master Plan area in advance of the public hearing we hosted later that week. This was our first tour conducted under the updates to the Land Use Code. As you may recall, Delegate Polakovich Carr introduced legislation during the last state session that relieved us of the requirement to live stream while out in the field for an educational tour. This shift enabled us to keep all other aspects of the Open Meetings Act while off-site. All commissioners were able to receive the same information at the same time. We are committed to ensuring that our meetings remain open to the public, no matter where they take place. In this case, we had seats available on the bus for the public to reserve and also published the itinerary for people to join us at the different stops. Speaking of Clarksburg, we continue to expand our opportunities to meet the community where they are. We took our auditorium on the road again on September 25th to host our public hearing in Germantown near the community under discussion. We've also continued our placemaking initiative. Many of you were able to join us in the Wheaton in June when we took over the parking lot adjacent to our building for the Wheels on Wheaton event. The excitement was so palpable that they even got me on roller skates. Yeah, that's right. These placemaking opportunities give us a chance to connect on a deeper level with the community. From visioning to the implementation, this is a community-driven process that encourages residents to think big and set the stage for vibrant and accessible communities. You'll hear more later, but we are also excited to have our graduation later this month for the first cohort of the Planning Academy. Your support during the last budget cycle made this possible. I'm confident that as we continue to engage residents in the planning process, we will all benefit. I also continue to focus on our role within the region. In July, Prince George's County appointed a new chair of their planning department, Daryl Barnes. We have been working to build our relationship, identify joint priorities, and collaborate. I've convened an additional breakfast with the chairs. This is a program I started to create opportunities for Planning Commission board chairs from across the region to share best practices and coordinate together. We've been meeting together every few months with our next meeting later this month. Our board is committed to creating space for dialogue around innovative ideas and opportunities to address our priority issues, specifically around housing, environmental resiliency, and economic growth. Earlier this year, we brought together legislators, advocates, and experts to talk about the opportunity for single-stair legislation and construction. This building code change could create opportunities for more light-feel, larger bedroom units on smaller lots without changing any zoning. We are also developing a panel to discuss and address how we plan for climate action. We will have additional information on this panel in the upcoming months. As with our speaker series last year, all of these are open to the public and recorded for on-demand viewing. The board also continues to connect with institutions in the county, whether it's the Fair Access Coalition, District Democratic Clubs, Montgomery Agricultural Producers, or our many nonprofit partners. We are committed to connecting with and hearing from all our regional partners. Switching gears for a moment, I want to commend Montgomery Parks for a fantastic butterfly experience at Brookside Gardens. The butterfly experience returned after shutting down during COVID. We hadn't had a display since 2019. Brookside saw close to 40,000 visitors who were able to learn about the over 75 species of butterflies that fluttered throughout the greenhouse. We had over 100 volunteers work this exhibit, totaling over 3,100 hours. The board was lucky enough to get a behind-the-scenes visit with the butterflies during our annual board retreat. Stay tuned. The staff toured this area of the conservatory into an oasis of calm, reflection, and wonder. I was impressed by the teamwork and collaboration of the staff to work through all the USDA requirements to ensure that we are protecting all our butterfly guests and, as importantly, protecting our native environment. The exhibit ended on September 21st, and the remaining 550 butterflies crossed state lines to the butterfly atrium at Hershey Gardens, Pennsylvania, and we confirmed they made it there safely. If you didn't get a chance to see them, or even if you did, I strongly encourage you to join us again next year. But before I turn it over to my colleagues to share more about our work, I want to thank you for your work. The board strives to forward plans and policies that incorporate long-term goals of the county and community needs. We appreciate your thoughtful review of these policies. In these uncertain times nationally, globally, and locally, you are faced every day with significant challenges that directly affect the lives of our residents. I know that it can't be easy. We truly appreciate your leadership and the leadership of our county executive as you navigate these complex waters. I'll now turn over the presentation to our Montgomery Parks Director, Mitty Figueredo.
Thank you, Chair Harris, and good morning, council members. I'm very happy to be here before you again this morning to give you our semi-annual report. So this opening picture is from our Canopy Connections program. This one is for people over 55, but we also do the same program for teens. And I think it's a great example of how staff across the department, including even our horticulture and urban forestry team, are fully committed to getting our residents outside having fun in nature, and they come up with amazing ideas like this one. So this year, Montgomery Parks was again named a gold medal finalist by the National Recreation and Parks Association. This places us among the top 4 agencies in the country in the category of park systems in an area with a population of over 400,000. We didn't win this year, but we're still the only agency to have brought home 6 gold medals, and we are going to try again for our 7th next year. I do want to recognize a couple of local jurisdictions. The City of Rockville's Parks and Recreation Department was a finalist in its population class as well, and the Arlington County Department of Parks and Recreation won its class, so congratulations to them. So our theme this semi-annual is behind the scenes. I'm going to pull back the curtain just a little bit to give you a closer look at what it takes to maintain our 37,000 acres of parks and facilities and natural areas. And I'm going to start with Sligo Creek Fest. This past May, over 10,000 people gathered for our now annual Sligo Creek Fest event, which was 6,000 people more than the prior year, which was the first year, which happened in the rain. The Montgomery Parks Foundation sponsored a bike valet station this past year. It was used by over 250 bicyclists. I was one of them who were riding to the event on the trail. And for 2026, the Parks Foundation is going to be looking for external sponsors, corporate sponsors, to raise additional funding. So this is the first Saturday in May. This year, that's May 2nd, and we look forward to seeing you all there. But this event took months of planning and included the work of over 100 staff all across the department. Our operations staff started preparing that 1 mile stretch between Dennis and University Boulevard a month in advance. And on the right there, you can see an operations crew that is repairing a bridge that was one of the entrances to the event. And we had 20 different park and planning staff and community groups providing activities and exhibits like tree climbing, nature on wheels, electrofishing demos, native plant displays, archaeology, and of course our Park Police Mounted Horse Unit. Behind every ribbon cutting is extensive public engagement. Our public engagement team plays a crucial role behind the scenes in every project, making sure that our community is engaged and informed. Pictured here is Michelle Ramirez. She is our only full-time outreach coordinator. Fortunately, she is fully bilingual in English and Spanish. Over the past year, Michelle has coordinated and supported 68 outreach and engagement initiatives. She's conducted 13 community surveys for diverse audiences and mailed over 22,000 postcards for 8 projects engaging over 4,300 survey participants. We will be soon opening our first 18-hole disc golf course at Northwest Branch Rec Park next to the National Capital Trolley Museum. But behind the scenes, we did some community engagement, and to make sure that we are building a fun course, we have engaged outside experts who are familiar and experienced with designing a good disc golf course. And one thing I like about this project that I want to highlight is that this is a perfect use for this site. There is a capped landfill at this location. You can see it in the bottom right picture there, kind of behind the riprap. So there isn't much disturbance we can do at this site. So it's really a perfect place for a use like this. Bottleworks Lane, it's under construction with an opening planned for this coming spring. It is going to be a signature urban park with games, courts, dog runs, a nature play area, picnic area, and it will connect to the future Green Loop, and that's all in 1 acre. This project is a great example of how, when the conditions are right, we can move pretty quickly. We acquired the property in 2021 before the ink was even dry on the Silver Spring plan. We began doing public outreach in 2022. You can see there in the bottom left, we did a community engagement event at Denizens, because sometimes even a brewery can be a great community gathering place. I wish it was still there. We started demolition in 2023. We were delayed a little bit because we discovered, unfortunately, that there was additional environmental remediation required on the site. It was the location of a former car shop. So that slowed us down a little bit. And then we had a public naming contest in 2025. We gave the community 3 options to choose from, and they chose the name Bottleworks Lane. Obviously, that references the industrial history of the site. Also in 2021, we purchased almost 500 acres of land in the Ag Reserve for about $3 million to create a conservation park. It's named for our twice over former planning board chair and father of the Agricultural Reserve, Royce Hansen. This is the headwaters of the Broad Run tributary. It has diversified habitats, including wetlands and meadows, upland and riparian forest, and it's on special soils that support very rare plant and wildlife communities. There's also a lot of indigenous history here, and it was occupied by Union soldiers during the Civil War. So our plan here is to combine resource-based recreation with environmental and historic and cultural stewardship. So far, we've built 5 miles of trails, we've restored ponds and a meadow, and we are partnering with Poolesville High School's Global Ecology Program so that the kids can do some hands-on research and learning. And we've got other things planned for the site in the future, including primitive camping. Also up county, we're excited to share that Ovid Hazen Wells Recreational Park is coming online in the very near future. Pictured here is a site map showing where the carousel and the skate park will be situated. What is significant about this park, and I was lucky enough to take a visit recently, is how our incredible design team took advantage of the natural topography of the site, and they incorporated the features to fit into the site. So everywhere you are here, you have these amazing views and vistas. But behind the scenes, what does it take to make this happen? The historic carousel that was previously living at Wheaton Regional Park is relocating to its permanent home at Ovid Hazen Wells, as was originally intended. We do have a new carousel at Wheaton Regional. Yeah. So on the left there, you can see a photo of our design team. They're working on site at Ovid Hazen Wells, resolving some kind of design question, and that's on the left. And then on the right, you can see one of our park staff who is preparing the historic courses to be sent over to one of only 2 companies in the United States that build and renovate carousels. And in this next image, you can see that the playground was designed to give parents and caregivers a full view of the park. And to make sure that we're getting the skate park right, we engaged heavily with skate park users and again hired a specialized skate park designer. The users will ultimately be the judge, but you can see there that we have some skaters who may or may not have crossed some construction fencing that they were not supposed to go over and tried out the park. We will say not too much more about that, but hopefully they enjoyed it. Work is underway at the Rubini Athletic Complex at Wheaton Regional Park, preceding the launch of the Action Sports Park. This map highlights 5 major projects that are currently in progress: the reconstruction of the Nairn Trail, the renovation of courts and parking within the Rubini complex, upgrades to the Rubini maintenance yard so that it's got the capacity to properly maintain the new facilities we're building, implementation of our Safe Streets for All project on Orabaugh Avenue that's going to enhance safe bicycle and pedestrian access at that entrance to the park. And the Action Sports Park is in the detailed design phase, with construction anticipated to begin in fiscal year 29. As I mentioned, we are in detailed design for the Action Sports Park, and again, as with the disc golf and Ovid Hazen Wells, to make sure that we deliver a project that's truly enjoyable for users, we plan to retain firms with experience in bike and skate parks. Key amenities will include spectator areas, picnic shelters, a climbing wall, the system's first quarter-mile track, and we want everyone to have a nice time here, even if they are not engaging in action sports. You've probably heard of our popular native plant sales, where the public can purchase high-quality native plants grown by parks. Last year, our staff sold more than 14,000 native plants, improving the ecological health of our county, one home garden at a time. And when you visit our renovated parks, you are seeing plantings that come from Pope Farm. Established in 1974, Pope Farm Nursery is Montgomery Parks' premier plant production facility. It's located on 70 acres in Gaithersburg. It's not open to the public. It's a behind-the-scenes machine. Each year, the facility plants an upward of 800 seedling trees and produces approximately 60,000 perennials annually. It's also the home of our green waste recycling facility and a community garden program known as Grown at Pope, run by volunteers that contributes fresh produce to local food pantries. Now that I've given you a glimpse of some of our behind-the-scenes work, I also want to share some updates on a few additional projects. Pictured here are before and after shots of a renovation done at a softball field in Cloverly Local Park. Our 6-member athletic field renovation team manages about 12 to 18 field renovations a year. You may recall the very unfortunate case of arson that destroyed the playground at Greenbrier Local Park in spring of 2024. For us, this was very discouraging because we did have to find $250,000 to cover the deductible, and then we had to add it to our list of current projects, which is hard because of staff capacity. However, construction on the playground is now underway. We expect to be done in mid-November. We also recently completed a fish passage that was funded as a Purple Line environmental mitigation project, and it reconnects the upstream and downstream reaches of Long Branch. Our biologists and engineers, and you can see in the right-hand picture there, Andy Frank, our division chief for Parks Development, is very excitedly pointing at the fish passage, so you can be clear on what it is. They are very excited about the fact that this is going to now allow migration between fish populations that had been separated for 50 years, and that's obviously really important for their genetic diversity. The Flower Avenue Outfall Restoration Project at Indian Springs Terrace Local Park is about 1.5 miles upstream of the Purple Line Fish Passage, and it's also part of our Long Branch Parks Initiative. This outfall channel receives stormwater runoff from the Beltway and from Blair High School, and you can see in the before and after photos, it was severely eroded and completely overgrown with invasive plants. It's now been stabilized to improve aquatic habitat. It has pools that can retain stormwater and slow the erosive flows, and we planted more than 5,500 native plants, trees, and shrubs. These are just a couple of the many stormwater stream projects that we have in planning, design, and construction in this watershed, and we are using biological monitoring to track our ecological progress. We have begun work on the Little Falls Parkway Vision Zero project. Thus far, we've done some tree protection and we're doing survey work. I think demolition will begin next week. It's expected to be completed in early December. The project scope was expanded to include a complete milling and asphalt resurfacing of the roadway. It was in poor condition. I do want to clarify, I've seen as recently as this morning that the cost of the project increased to $1.7 million. That's not correct. It's $1.17 million. Our original estimate was approximately $700,000, but we added a complete roadway rehabilitation project to this so that we don't have to come back again and do it later. I'm also mentioning it here because it's a good example of the kinds of notification and outreach we do when we're beginning construction, especially on a parkway project. And this included a press release, project webpage, social media updates, and of course, VMS boards. We recently concluded a preliminary planning study that gathered input from over 450 community members, and we will begin design this winter on the renovation of the Capitol Crescent Trail. The study also recommended several short-term initiatives, including updating trail signs and mile markers and a courtesy campaign to educate users about trail safety and etiquette. At Montgomery Parks, we're always thinking of ways to encourage young people to come work with us. About a quarter of our workforce is retirement eligible over the next few years, so we're always thinking about how we can recruit a diverse workforce for the future. We have several different internship programs for both high school and college students, including MCPS's Summer Rise program, Liberty's Promise, and our own Nature Stewardship internship program that teaches kids about green careers, especially in nature interpretation and education. That program was the brainchild of our Nature Center staff, and it was funded by a grant from the Parks Foundation. Along with our friends at the county and the Commission on People with Disabilities, we hosted Disability Pride Outside at Black Hill Regional Park, celebrating the 35th anniversary of the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act. We had a number of different activities there. You can see the pontoon boat. We also had adaptive kayaking, mountain biking, birding, fishing, of course, all of it with accommodations because, as you know, we believe that access to outdoor recreation and nature is for everyone. With the support of our chair and the planning board, we have recently committed to a goal of doubling our solar energy production over the next 5 years. We currently generate about 20% of our energy. That's about 3.4 million kilowatt hours. And we'd like to double that to 6.8 through a mix of rooftop, ground mounted, and parking canopy installations. That would be enough to power over 600 homes for a year. As I wrap up, I hope you can join us for some upcoming ribbon cuttings that you can see there in the fall and in the spring. Next month, we're celebrating the opening of Royce Hansen Conservation Park, and we also have some upcoming events like the Better with Age comedy special that's part of our Active Aging Week. That's going to be at South Germantown. Our final Acoustics and Ales of the season, which is our Halloween edition, and it is a fan favorite, and obviously there's going to be music and food and beer, and that's at Black Hill Regional Park. And just to close out, I want to thank you. This was from a prior Acoustics and Ales. I want to thank you for your continued support, and I hope you can see we're really dedicated to delivering results for your constituents. Thank you.
It is always difficult to follow Mitty and the great work that the Parks Department does, but I will give it my best try. Good morning, President Stewart, Vice President Jawando, and council members. I'm Jason Sartori, Montgomery County Planning Director, and as always, I'm really happy to be with you this morning. October is Community Planning Month, so the theme of my briefing this morning highlights our staff's dedication to their craft and the lasting impact they make on our county. This group, whose expertise ranges across many different disciplines, shapes the future of our county every single day. Their passion fuels bold ideas and creative solutions to complex challenges while ensuring that our work products reflect the values and the vision of the community. You see, we operate at the intersection of community voices and professional best practices. And that balance is what makes our work so hard, yet so impactful. Community input is vital to shaping our plans, but it also has to be balanced with expert analysis and established planning principles to ensure long-term viability. Good planning isn't just responsive. It's strategic, data-informed, and grounded in professional judgment. Our role is to translate diverse and sometimes competing community aspirations into resilient, equitable outcomes. Our work is more than maps and models. It's guiding transformative development, protecting public spaces and resources, envisioning safer streets, engaging diverse stakeholders, and building community. Every public meeting, every staff report, every zoning analysis, these are all opportunities for us to build trust, foster collaboration, and create places where people thrive. And I thank the Council for your dedication to our team and to community planning that matters. Continuing the theme of Community Planning Month and the scope of our department's work, I want to invite you to scan the QR code on this screen to read the new Third Place blog that I co-authored with Prince George's County Planning Director Lakeisha Hull. The post goes into more detail about the value that community planning provides. And as you know, we are also in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, and this year we've taken time to celebrate our staff's diversity by sharing the very personal and inspiring stories of a couple of our planners, Justine Gonzalez-Velez and Emma Perez, and their journeys from Puerto Rico and Argentina to Montgomery County and to the planning field. Here you can see Emma, who was highlighted earlier this year in a national ABC News story for the role he plays in his Silver Spring community as a parent leader of a weekly bike bus. Our staff brings diverse experiences and a passion for community to work every single day, but it's clear this is personal to us when you hear their stories and here when you see and you read some of the comments that were posted to this blog post on Emma from some of his neighbors about how much they value what he brings to their neighborhood. You can read his and Justine's story by scanning the QR code on the screen. And if anyone is interested in joining Emma for one of his bike bus tours, let us know. We'll get you in touch with him. Last semi-annual, I talked to you about our new strategic plan that we are now actively implementing. The strategic plan roadmap that you see here highlights different elements of the plan, including our 5 top priorities: our employees, the communities we serve, efficiency, innovation, and leadership. Not shown here are the 149 plan actions for which we are regularly tracking our progress. One of those actions called for us to look in the mirror and ask whether we were organized in the best way possible to effectively implement the strategic plan and help the county thrive. So one of the biggest changes that you'll notice about Montgomery Planning over the last 6 months is how we are organized. The last time we had a comprehensive structure update was in 2011. By realigning our structure, we can better serve communities and deliver on the vision of Thrive Montgomery 2050 with new geographic divisions. With new geographic divisions and a focus on design, transportation, historic preservation, and environment, this reorg positions the department to plan smarter, connect deeper, and build a safer and more resilient county. Now, having functional teams for different planning disciplines allows for increased creativity and innovation within those disciplines, greater staffing flexibility, improved support for employee growth and mentorship, and more advancement opportunities. And our leadership is dedicated to ensuring that we don't become siloed in those disciplines, that we don't operate in isolation, we don't hoard information within those teams, and we don't prioritize individual team goals and agendas over the department's mission. So we've been emphasizing and practicing collaboration within our department. The photo on the left of your screen is from our first ever Innovation Lab, which was launched last week as a cross-divisional initiative designed to spark collaboration and creativity among our Environment and Climate Division, our Design, Placemaking and Policy Division, and our Transportation Planning Division. Teams were formed, multidisciplinary teams were formed to brainstorm and pitch project ideas to the division chiefs for consideration to be implemented or as future work program requests that will come to you. The photo on the right is from an internal charrette for the Germantown Sector Plan Amendment that involves staff from multiple divisions. This photo shows Eli Glazier from Transportation Planning, Luis Estrada Sapero from Design, Placemaking and Policy, and Paul Mortensen from the Director's Office. I'd now like to talk about some of our ongoing housing efforts in the department. And now, while we don't have a mascot in the planning department, I think if we did, it might be a data chart or something like this. It would be very, sorry, appreciate the mascot that you guys have. Here you see some recent data released from the Census Bureau showing the distribution of home values across the county, the state, and the country. Just looking at the top category, you can see that 21% of our housing stock is valued above $1 million according to the census. And that compares to only 6% across the state, and that includes our portion of that, and 8% across the whole United States. And I share this not only because the data are new, these just came out last month, but also because it helps set the context for the comprehensive data housing needs assessment we're conducting with funding you provided in our FY26 budget. So this effort is designed to provide a clear, detailed, data-driven understanding of our current housing landscape and to guide our future planning and policy decisions. So this work will include an analysis of who lives in the county, where, and in what kind of housing by type, size, age, tenure, and condition. Another analysis that will provide a comparison of existing housing to what households can afford or need, identifying the biggest mismatches that exist within that. And finally, we're working with the National Center for Smart Growth at the University of Maryland to estimate future housing needs through 2050. We're also moving forward with the Housing Preferences Survey, which will allow us to better understand the types of housing people want to see in the county. There are 6 primary tasks for this effort. First is to gather a representative sample of county residents, which will ensure that we hear from historically marginalized communities and residents that we don't usually see participating in the planning process. Second is to collect data on housing preferences, priorities, needs, concerns, and challenges. We're specifically looking to hear from residents about their individual experiences with housing in Montgomery County. Third, we will document the top housing preferences at the county level, but also across subgeographies and different demographic groups to see how housing preferences and experiences vary across those groups. Fourth, we will use the findings to describe implications for meeting the housing need in the county. And next, all of this information will be compiled into a detailed report. And finally, communicating our findings to the public is extremely important, particularly given that the data are coming from them. So we'll work with our communications team to raise awareness about the facts and the data that results from this study. And of course, you know that the planning department has been conducting an analysis of projects in the residential development pipeline. This analysis looks not just at the number of approved units, but how they progress through the pipeline, what gets built, what stalls, and why. The effort has focused on projects with more than 10 units unbuilt, on 10 unbuilt units, which included 88 projects that accounted for 99% of the units in the pipeline. Of the approximately 30,000 units tracked in the pipeline database, only about 14,700 actually have all of their planning approvals needed to move forward to permitting. And among those, there are still a good number that are unlikely to move forward for a variety of reasons. We recently briefed PHP on our preliminary findings, and we're now refining and finalizing our analysis based on the committee's feedback, and we'll be bringing making our final presentation to the committee later this month on October 27th. You may also recall that we worked with PHP last year to disaggregate the county's 2030 housing target across 22 local planning areas. Now, given that 2030 is only 51 months away at this point, achieving the 2030 targets really hinges on creating conditions that will quickly move approved projects through the pipeline to construction. This underscores the value of the pipeline analysis that we've been conducting. We also worked with the committee to identify 2040 and 2050 targets. The map you see here displays the cumulative local targets through 2050, the darker blue being the higher number. When we start talking about 2040 and 2050 targets, the most effective way to meet them is to ensure that we have appropriately planned and zoned for growth in those areas. You can see that many of the areas that with higher targets have been recently or are currently being master planned, places like Clarksburg, Germantown, Georgia Avenue, Fairland, Burtonsville, Kensington, University Boulevard, Silver Spring, Bethesda. Since many of these areas are built out with existing development, our master plan efforts have been rightly focused on strategically and very deliberately identifying opportunities for redevelopment and infill and increased density in our activity centers and along our major corridors. The master plan efforts are necessary because current zoning is not sufficient to be able to meet our targets. For instance, the local housing target effort calls for the Kent Mill Four Corners planning area to accommodate more than 2,400 additional units by 2050. The University Boulevard Corridor Plan, which runs through that planning area, presents the greatest opportunity to lay the groundwork to ensure this area can achieve this target in a smart and sustainable way. I'll provide some quick updates now on each of our active master plan efforts, highlighting images of our expert planners in the community or working with community members on these efforts. The UBC plan is currently being reviewed by the PHP committee and should be coming to the full council later this fall. On the left is an image from conversations our team had with the community in the field, and on the right is a community meeting held at nearby Wheaton headquarters. As Chair Harris mentioned, the Planning Board held two public hearings on September 25th on the draft Clarksburg Gateway Sector Plan. The board begins its work sessions on the plan on October 16th, that's next Thursday, and we expect to deliver the board's draft to the council by the end of the year. The photos here are from the board's tour of the Clarksburg plan area last month. The Germantown team will be briefing the Planning Board later this month on emerging ideas, and then the working draft will go to the board next summer. These photos are from a couple of workshops we held at the Germantown Library earlier this year. Workshops like this give residents and stakeholders the opportunity to discuss their priorities with planners from working on various elements of the plan by going to different stations located around the room. And here are images of a different type of visioning session that we held on September 30th for our Friendship Heights sector plan. Here you can see community stakeholders meeting with planning staff in small groups to discuss their thoughts on the different plan concepts. And this followed a briefing on the plan by project lead Atara Margulies that you see there on the right. This plan is also expected to go to the Planning Board next summer. Our Eastern Silver Spring Communities Plan is one of the larger master plan areas geographically that we've pursued in quite a while. So it covers most of the area inside the Beltway, east of Sligo Creek, all the way to the Prince George's Line, north at Tacoma Park. Our team recently had a tent at the annual Long Branch Festival, and here you can see another engagement tactic that we employ. With a graphic recording artist, community members respond to a few prompts, asking them to imagine their community in 25 years. And their responses are illustrated into one comprehensive graphic that you see on the right. This has been a pretty successful and a really approachable way to invite residents to share their aspirations for their community and their concerns for the plan area. And given the breadth of this plan, we expect to deliver it to the council in early 2027. So here is an updated work program schedule that you should have in your packet. There are a number of things on here that have been delayed, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about any of the projects that are on here. But as some of these get closer, we'll collaborate with Ms. Dunn and council leadership to appropriately space out the review of master plans. Scheduling is a bit complicated by the election cycle, budget cycles, and our awareness that we will have a number of new council members in 14 months. Some of the projects at the bottom, like the phase 2 of segregation mapping, have been extended due to a lack of funding or a lack of staff resources, but we're going to continue to keep them on here and work on them as we can. As I mentioned earlier, redevelopment and infill along our major transportation corridors will help us meet our housing needs and goals in an efficient and sustainable way. Corridor planning is more than changing zoning. Through the master plan process, we re-envision our corridors as the connective tissue linking activity centers with a safe, comfortable, and appealing environment that is walkable, bikeable, and transit accessible. It is only through the master plan process that these corridors can themselves become key elements of complete communities, with a unique sense of place that connects people in more ways than just through travel. Our planning efforts recognize that different people bring different perspectives to a corridor. People who live on the corridor, people who live near the corridor, people who work or go to school along the corridor, people who travel to the corridor to shop, eat, or attend religious services, and of course, people who just simply travel through the corridor. All of these people want to see a corridor that functions well. And in this image, you can see attributes of a growth corridor in our county that are not ideal and need to be re-envisioned. Lined with low-density single-family house zoning, with homes set back from the road, frequent curb cuts for driveways that not only are conflict points for pedestrians and vehicles, but also contribute to roadway congestion during peak hours. Infrequent pedestrian crossings, sidewalks, if they exist, they do here, but unbuffered from wide vehicle lanes that encourage speeding during off-peak hours. Limited shade and tree cover, and no pedestrian-oriented lighting. And now here are some examples of nearby well-planned corridors. The one on the top left is from Richmond, Virginia, and top right is Alexandria. They have higher density mixed-use development closer to the street with limited points of access, buffered sidewalks, street trees, dedicated median running BRT, narrower vehicle lanes, frequent protected crossings for pedestrians, and pedestrian-oriented lighting. The bottom is a conceptual design of a gentle density corridor similar to what is proposed in the Planning Board draft of the UBC plan, with higher densities along the corridor transitioning one block into single-family neighborhoods. To maintain the mantle of leadership for sustainable land use and inclusive housing that we are nationally known for, and to continue to be the economic engine of the state, our efforts at the Planning Department will continue to plan for these types of thriving corridors. Now, shifting gears a bit, last semi-annual we reported that we were preparing to launch our inaugural class for the Community Planning Academy, and now we're really happy to report that the summer 2025 class is set to graduate. After a multi-language marketing campaign, we received nearly 650 applications to participate in our initial summer cohort. And it's worth noting that I looked at the list, I recognized 3 names on that list. We invited a group of approximately 50 of those applicants to take the course and provide feedback on the curriculum, on the modules, the overall academy experience. And in addition to taking online mobile-friendly courses, modules, we offered 16 in-person opportunities to connect through things like office hours to meet with a planner and an on-site tour of a recently completed development project so participants could see how change happens on the ground. The primary goal of the Academy is to help residents better understand how local planning decisions are made and how they shape their community. The course content is arranged in modules that you see here that help participants understand when and how they can effectively make their voices heard in the planning process. Since we last talked about this, we added 2 additional modules for transportation planning and the school planning process. If we receive the necessary funding, we hope to further grow the Academy with new modules on historic preservation and the park planning process, working with our friends in parks. And here are some screenshots of the user interface. The modules include welcoming messages from planning staff, so it's kind of help create connections to members of our team. Here you can see Tamika Graham, who's a lead reviewer from our East County Planning Division. She is the person who welcomes you to the welcomes participants to the development review module. The effort so far has been very successful, and we've been thrilled with the feedback that we've received. 91% of summer participants were satisfied or very satisfied with the course. 98% rate the course content as excellent or good. And 98% indicated they are very likely or likely to participate in future planning-related activities, which we thought was really what we want to see happening through this. And here are some additional quotes from participants. After making adjustments to the course modules, we'll be rolling out the Academy countywide later this fall to all who want to participate. You know, one of the, kind of in contrast to the traditional classroom-based models with class size limits, Montgomery Planning's virtual approach can scale up to hundreds of participants at one time. So I want to thank the County Council for its support in getting this great project started. And also, as a reminder, invite you to our graduation for the summer class. It'll be held on Thursday, October 23rd in our building, and you're all invited to thank these participants and celebrate their accomplishments. Your invitations should have been sent by email, but if you haven't received those, let me know, and we'll make sure we get them to you. And speaking of invitations, I again invite you to attend this year's Celebrate Design event, which recognizes the importance of great design in the county and the value it has on communities. At this event, which we host biannually, we will announce the winners of the 2025 Design Excellence Awards, including the Exceptional Housing Award and the newly renamed Gwen Marcus Wright Design Excellence Award. We really hope that you can attend this event, which will be held on we hope that you can attend this event, which will be held on Thursday, October 16th. Okay. It'll be held on Thursday. Was it something interesting? It's okay. All right. Thursday, October 16th, so next Thursday, and it begins with a reception at 6 p.m. atop the Marriott International Headquarters in Bethesda. I will say RSVPs are required to ensure that all attendees are provided access through Marriott's security. So please connect with Paul Mortensen from our team for any questions or to RSVP. And finally, at a time when it's reported that loneliness is at epidemic levels, many of us have seen firsthand that things like personal connection, mental health, depression, anxiety, school performance, and truancy are all interrelated. Our youth increasingly lack relationship and social skills beyond the phone in their hands. It impacts their preparedness to succeed in an interdependent world. And the world around us is becoming more divisive, and the values of inclusion and acceptance that we hold dear here in Montgomery County are under a constant barrage. It's under these conditions that our work as community planners, alongside our brothers and sisters in the Parks Department, is really most important. And we strive to create inclusive spaces that celebrate our diversity as a county, where people can naturally be exposed to and interact with others, develop relationships, and build a sense of community. It's not just in the built environment or the physical spaces, but in the events and the activities that bring people together in those spaces. We're so thankful for your continued commitment to our values, but also to the Planning Department's placemaking work and our work program, as these are true community planning and community building efforts. In the interest of time, we won't play this video. We have a video here highlighting the Wheels and Wheaton event that we held earlier this spring. But we'll send you the link and you can play it yourselves, and you can see how our placemaking efforts really bring people together, building connections in spaces that reflect the community's character, its stories, its values, and its dreams. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Sartori. That was wonderful. And thank you again, council members, for the opportunity to share these highlights from the past half year and previews of upcoming activities. We are your department, committed to supporting all residents in Montgomery County through guiding our land use and protecting our parks and open space. We're here to answer any questions you have, but before I turn it back to you, I want to thank and acknowledge two of my board members here today, Vice Chair Mitra Pedwam and James Hedrick. So thank you both for coming, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this morning.
Thank you so much, Chair Harris. Thank you for those presentations. I have a couple of colleagues in the queue, but I'm going to start us off. And first, Director Sartori, I just want to say thank you to the Planning Department for all your work, and in particular on the note you ended with on the community engagement. And one of the things that has really struck me over the last couple of years is how you tailor that engagement to the community. It's not boilerplate. You don't go in and say, okay, here's what we're doing each place. And I really appreciate that approach, and had a great time at Long Branch. And it was, I can't wait to see the full final depiction of what the community wants and needs there. So thank you so much for that. So over to parks. I just want to say thank you very much to the Parks Department. In particular, I just want to lift up the work that's been done along Rolling Terrace Elementary School as we've done the Long Branch Parks Initiative. It has been great. I do want to thank Andy Frank. He spends a lot of time in the field, which is a good thing, for coming out and talking to the residents and the parents there. And as I've talked to the director about, I think it's important, especially when we do these projects near elementary schools, is to remember that the parents and the children there turn over pretty quickly. And in our lives of projects that can be planned and then it's a couple of years before implementation, for an elementary school, that's a whole generation of kids who've come and gone. And so I really appreciate representatives of the Parks Department going to Rolling Terrace, going to the Cafecito and talking to the parents. They loved it and really appreciated it. One of the things that we wanted to lift up that we had heard from parents, and not just in this area but different areas, is some signage about the projects. And I know we've done that over near the Bottle Works Park, but that was also a request from some of the folks who live in the apartments near where the Long Branch Trail is going in, just to kind of help them keep track of what's going on there. And in addition to that, one of the other requests that we have that I wanted to pass on is, I know we've had long conversations about lights in parks, but one of the things, particularly when the paths are being used as a connector in the community, where people are traveling back and forth, and in our Long Branch community, there are a number of places that connect the community to University, to Piney Branch, to the Long Branch Community Center. And once the Purple Line is over, it will be up and running and the construction over, in the community that lives on the other side of Piney Branch, near Rolling Terrace. To get to the Long Branch Community Center, they're going along those paths. And so they would just like to have more conversation about lighting there. But again, just really appreciate everyone coming out, and just really appreciate Andy for his receptiveness to hearing from the parents about their concerns. So one question I do have, and I think it's mostly for parks, but maybe for planning as well, as we see the impacts of climate change, and today it's October and it's going to be 80 degrees out. When you were seeing like our summer season start earlier, last longer, is that having an impact on how you all are thinking about the operations, some opportunities and challenges?
Obviously, climate change has an environmental impact on parks, so we think about resiliency when we're designing parks. We have stormwater issues we have to deal with. The effect on our streams, as you're familiar with, is serious. But in addition to that, when we're planning for parks, what we're hearing from people, and I think this is related to climate change impacts and to how people use their parks, is requests for shade, first of all, more shade in parks. And also for water in parks, different kinds of water. So people want water for drinking, but they also want water features. That's not something we've really done in Montgomery Parks outside of, our Germantown splash pad and enterprise function. We don't really have that kind of thing. And I think it's something, I know it's something that we're looking at and we're going to need to look at incorporating more of. The shade is an issue. There's a long-standing view that you want to be careful about putting trees around playgrounds. And of course, shade structures are expensive. But I think we need to take harder look at both of these things. So those are a couple of the ways in which we are having to think more about the impact of climate change on our work.
Great. Director Sador.
And I would just add, kind of going along with the shade concept, you see it in a lot of the plan recommendations that we have. And, going to put a little plug in for some of our budget requests, which haven't actually gone to the board yet. But, the last couple of years, we've asked for a climate position, and I think that's we don't have someone on our staff who is specifically a climate specialist. Really talking about someone who knows how to integrate climate issues and responses and resilience work into the planning work that we do throughout, kind of taking a lens through everything we do. We're also, one of the other things we're looking to do is kind of following the county's work, collaborative work with us and others on the flood management plan, looking at what types of responses can we do. So preparing a resilience plan for the county that looks at everything. It's not just environment, it's transportation networks. It's a bunch of different things, and how do you build resilience into all of our systems.
Great. Thank you. Yes, as the Director of Parks know, I've been a long proponent of doing drinking water as a runner in the summertime, having more drinking water in our parks, as well as toilets. But I understand there are budgetary constraints on that and other infrastructure issues, but would love to continue that conversation. And as well as that we were in Transportation and Environment. Was that just yesterday? Yeah, just yesterday, talking to WSSC, and we did raise and have a conversation with them about the ongoing conversations you're having regarding Sligo Creek and restoration, and look forward to hearing about those efforts as well. All right, I'll turn it over to my colleagues. First, we'll have Councilmember Sales.
All right. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to Director Sartori and Mitty. It was nice to see Mitty over the weekend. We were talking about parks, and a resident came over, and the first question was, how do you feel about the parks? She had no idea that the parks director was in on the conversation, so we were
I got a little nervous.
We were pleasantly surprised to hear that she appreciated all of the upgrades that she's seeing around the community at our local parks. And so it's great to hear from our residents on the spot how great you're doing when no one's watching. So thank you for all the work you are both doing. Just wanted to follow up because during our last session, speaking of data, Mr. Sartori, you mentioned you all sent, I think it was Mitty sent the Community Equity Index data. We were talking about where all of these upgrades are happening around the county, and it showed that a majority of our projects are actually in our Community Equity Index areas, our disadvantaged areas of the county. And so just wanted to find out if you have seen any responses about what those investments are showing in the community, any impacts that you can speak to regarding those improvements in the equity areas.
I can think, I'm glad that you brought that up, and we did send you follow-up information after the last one. You're correct, it showed that our investment, And this was a little bit this was a little bit of work to pull together because we do so many projects in parks that we wanted to focus. We didn't want there to be too much noise in the data, so we wanted to focus on things like actual park renovations and playgrounds and that kind of thing that has a real impact on people, that people actually experience. And when we did the mapping and the analysis, it did show that it was a little bit above, for prior years, a little bit above the percentage of parks that are actually equity serving or in community equity index. But when we looked forward, it was actually starting to tick up in numbers. So the percentage of projects that were in those areas actually exceed the percentage of parks that are in equity or equity serving area, meaning we're doing the equity work. Because our goal is, of course, in order to, actually reach your equity goals, you have to focus on the areas that maybe haven't been getting the attention that they needed. And I think the impact when we do projects in those communities, we absolutely hear so much positive feedback. Long Branch is a big example for us. Everything that we're doing in Long Branch, the initial work that we did in Flower Avenue Urban Park has really engaged the residents. They start to feel more of a sense of ownership over their park, and they realize that their voice makes a difference. We did a renovation at Strathmore Local Park just a year or two ago, and it was transformative. So it's obviously the right thing to do. I will tell you, it also just makes my staff happy. They enjoy doing that kind of work. It's really meaningful for them. So I appreciate you raising this issue again. Thank you.
Definitely. And we also approved $100,000 in the budget for park facelifts. Can you share a bit about how that funding has been used?
Yes. So we have been using that funding to, as I explained when we got the money in our budget, to make high impact, low cost improvements to parks that kind of make people feel that their park is being cared for. Because as I've explained previously, our maintenance team follows maintenance standards, and they have a schedule. It's like one of our division chiefs called it a printing press. They every day do the same thing in parks. They pick up the trash, they mow the grass, etc. So sometimes little things fall between the cracks, and we might not address them until we do a full park renovation. But that could take decades. So in between, we want to make sure that these parks are getting that little bit of extra TLC that they might need. So some of the early things we did was replace signage. We've been doing things like updating mulch and making small improvements to playgrounds short of playground renovations to make them feel nicer. One thing that I will preview for you here is Councilmember Friedson's office brought to our attention that there was I don't know if you all are familiar with Porky Pig at Cabin John. And he was looking very rough, and his voice was terrifying. It was like, and a resident brought that to Councilmember Friedson's attention, and they passed that along to us. And it is not actually a small thing to take this historic electrical thing out of a park and then completely I've seen the pictures. I saw the pictures in progress, and now it's ready to be installed, and that was done with our facelift budget. So it's, again, a little thing, but the residents who go to Cabin John and who expect to see this terrifying pig will be very happy, I think. So,
thank you. And speaking of constituent concerns, a question that has been raised is continuously about the storm restoration projects. And so I know the Long Branch Fish Passage, Williams Run, and other parks. Can you speak to some of the benefits from some of these storm restorations and how we're communicating this to the community before we start projects so that they know of the immense benefits of this restoration effort?
Thank you. Yes. We are aware that there is a contingent of residents who don't support stream restoration projects. I think that stream restoration projects that are done perhaps in other jurisdictions, not by parks, might be done a little bit differently. At parks, it's just one of many tools we use to address the impacts of uncontrolled runoff into our waterways. We can't do stream restorations everywhere. They don't work everywhere. They're not appropriate. They're expensive and time consuming. So it is just one tool. But when we make a a data-based decision, and our team includes scientists, biologists, engineers, people who are experts in this and live and breathe it. When we make a decision to move forward with a stream restoration project, it's done very carefully, and we do not, and this is something that I know the council has heard, but we do not do this. We do not clear cut. We do everything we can to preserve every tree we can. Sometimes there are trees we cannot save because the stream bank is so eroded that they are basically falling into the water. And then sometimes these areas are also completely overgrown with non-native invasives. So we might have to remove a tree or two, but we always go in and do a lot of planting new trees, removing non-native invasives, planting native plants. And often the pictures, because I've seen all these emails, will show a picture of a blown out stream that is very green because it's full of non-native invasives and a construction site.
Yes.
What they don't share with you is the end product and what it looks like after the work is complete. Now, we are moving forward trying to engage residents more, educate them more, bring them out there, walk them through our process, and try to demonstrate to them that what they may perceive as sort of a general problem with stream restorations is not true in the case of projects managed by Montgomery Parks.
Thank you. And my last question is to Director Sartori. Thank you so much for all of your work. Really pleased that Director Sartori has joined us with our Communities for Housing Solutions program that we are working on with the National Association of Counties. We met yesterday with our first one-on-one discussion with NACO to talk about improving how we build affordable housing. And Director Sartori mentioned that the last 3 quarters we have not seen permits for new housing construction in the county, which is quite concerning. And so just wanted to ask a question, since we also have our infrastructure working group. Can you share anything that you're hearing about any major impediments to development outside of market constraints? We talked about potentially impact taxes. We know that we just passed a ZTA to encourage more housing developments of multifamily housing. Anything that you can share about how you are reaching out to our developers about plans that are in limbo and incentives that are underway?
Sure, thank you. Yes, we're really excited to be working on this effort along with the National Association of Counties and Smart Growth America. Yes. And just to clarify on that, what we have seen is over the last 3 quarters, fourth quarter of 2024, first quarter of 25, and second quarter of 25 is no multifamily units being permitted in the county. I would say that the work that we've done on our pipeline analysis is probably the one that's been most informative in answering your question. Through that effort, not only did we survey the owners of the approvals that are in the pipeline and heard back from, I think, 47 or 48 of the 88. We then followed up with some of our staff who are familiar with these projects, but then we also followed up with certain of the respondents with a kind of interview, and we spoke to them to get a little bit deeper into what's going on with their projects. We did hear a lot of market condition stuff. You know, the cost of construction is really high. The cost of borrowing money is really high. So we heard a lot about that. Also, just generally, you know, the DC area, there are concerns over the job market, given all of the federal government cuts and whatnot. There's concerns just generally about the job market in Montgomery County. We also heard about, yes, the impact taxes. We heard about concerns over the rent stabilization that we have now in the county. And not so much over some of the details of it, but just generally the impact that it's having, kind of a chilling effect on the market for people who want to invest in projects in Montgomery County. That is a lot of what we're hearing. I'm going to look to see if there's anything else that I need to highlight. That's most of it. Yeah. So those are the kind of the big things that we're hearing. I will say that we are excited by some of the changes that we've seen recently. We have a number of expedited plans. One of the things we talked about yesterday with that effort was how can we make the process a little bit more efficient. And so we do have a number of expedited plans that the county has put in place that we haven't seen too much activity on. We're starting to see, I'm aware of potentially 3 projects that might come in as office conversions under that expedited plan process. But that might be, there might be a few things that we could look at to kind of like low-hanging fruit to try to make those types of expedited plan approvals more accessible to more projects.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Friedson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. And thank you to the team and the staff for all the work that you put into this. I think I clearly went to the Wheels in Wheaton at the wrong time because I failed to see the chair on roller skates. I'm hopeful that it was caught in that video that we didn't get a chance to see today. I'm gonna look at that much more attentively now to see if we got any B-roll of that particular activity, because that sounds like something that none of us would want to miss. I just want to note on that, that effort really speaks to what paint and activation can do for a community. It really was an incredibly lively opportunity, and with just the mural on the back of the building and the paint in a parking lot and closing it off for a temporary period of time and turning it into a fun activity for families and community members, you could feel the energy of some of the local residents, community members, community-based groups, and organizations, and local businesses. And it really just was a great thing to see in Wheaton. So it was one event, but I think it speaks to the broader opportunity that we have in so many of the other placemaking activities that happen. But let me start with parks. Just want to thank the broad breadth here of lakes and trails and land preservation and environmental stewardship and community engagement and recreation and so many things that the Parks Department does. I particularly appreciate that you mentioned Porky Pig at Cabot John Regional Park. Looking forward to that restoration, not only as a constituent service, but as a kid who grew up feeding the pig. I look forward to that looking like it did when I was a kid, and not the weathered and challenged pig that looked like it was ready to be eaten, much less it looked like it was cooked, not ready to play. So appreciate that. And just want to note a few. The Wheaton Regional Action Sports Park is just incredibly exciting. I know how much interest there is, and it's an example of our regional parks really serving the region. Obviously it's important and we feel strongly that it's in Wheaton, but Wheaton Regional Park is drawing from even beyond Montgomery County now with that Action Sports Park and with some of the other activities, the carousel now restored, that many of us participated in that ribbon cutting. It's just really exciting to see how much of a magnet that can be, not just serving the local community, but really broadly the county and the region, which is really exciting. Bottle Works, I am excited about that. I will say I think most people are going to think that it's named for the beer garden as we move forward, which I think is always going to be interesting. We have to remind them it was named for the Coca-Cola bottling plant, not for Denizens or now Dasha Beer Garden. But I think it's a fun name to honor the past of that iconic building, and think that will be an ad, and that's a way of turning something that was temporary into something that is permanent, that I know is something that many of our residents in different parts of the county with different activation activities that have happened would like to see more often, where the short term can turn into a long term public and community benefit. And then I'm just particularly excited about the Royce Hansen Conservation Park and really want to highlight specifically the intentional efforts related to Native American history there, which I think is really important, and I don't want it to get lost in so many of the details of this conversation. I think that's critical and really helpful. And I'm really excited about the integration with Poolesville High School. And so we're talking about the future and we're talking about the past, and I think it all comes together, and obviously honoring the architect, as we had our farmers recognition earlier today, hosted by Councilmember Sales, to honor Royce Hanson, who really was in many ways the architect of that critical land preservation decision that created the agricultural reserve. I just think is really a testament to his role in the county's history, which is significant and stands in many ways above most anybody else. Switching to planning, just really excited about the Planning Academy. The numbers speak for themselves. I just want to congratulate you. This was the vision that you presented to us, and the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee was really proud that we were able to champion this effort, work together with you. And I think it's important to note that knowledge is power, and understanding how land use decisions are made is just an invaluable resource to residents and to the community. And I'm really looking forward to seeing that curriculum being made available to the public. I think that's going to be a significant step forward towards equitable land use. It's one piece of a broader puzzle, but it's a very significant one, and I think it's going to be a significant public service. So really excited about that. Thank you for all the work on the housing needs assessment. That's a crucial tool so that we can provide granular information to make better decisions moving forward. We have a housing crisis, and we need the data, all the data, to be able to make the best possible decisions as we do it, and that housing needs assessment is going to be a key piece of that. The segregation mapping and burial sites context study, I just think this is so important. We've talked about it quite a bit, but especially as we head into the 250th of the county and we start talking about how we are telling our history and how we're making decisions based on that history and being intentional about who is part of that history and whether or not it is a complete version of events. These are the type of foundations to that work that is so important. And I think that the Planning Department and the Parks Department are uniquely positioned to provide some of that context and some of that historical background. And I just want to express my appreciation to those particular activities, but really it's part of the broader historic efforts and intentional work that the department is doing in planning, but also that the Parks Department plays a significant role with major research capacity. And then just want to note the curbside management study. Probably something that doesn't get a whole lot of interest or thought in the public on a day-to-day basis, but when we talk about the age of Amazon with subscription deliveries and the gig economy and the impact on quality of life, on retailers, on residents, on our communities, this is really important. So I just want to note that, want to thank you for the work on that. I know that there are some who are following that very intently, but it impacts a lot more than those who are probably paying attention to it. So I just wanted to lift that up and highlight it. It's an example of some of the lower profile but critical work the department does, and I know the staff works extremely hard on, and so I just wanted to lift that up and acknowledge that and thank you for your work on that. I just want to close on a personal note. We're seeing a lot of misinformation and sowing of mistrust in our institutions. And a lot of it is focused on what's happening at the federal level, but we see it more than I am comfortable with at the local level, including those who are in public life in elected office. And as we offer support for federal workers and contractors, as we absolutely need to be doing right now, I think it is really important that we recognize our local public servants who are working on behalf of our county and on behalf of our community right here in the Parks Department, in the Planning Department, on behalf of our county residents. Not to undermine them, not to question their integrity, not to peddle conspiracy theories about how they do their work. There is absolutely room to disagree with decisions without attacking the people who are just trying to do their job. And so I just wanted to take a moment as we talk about the work that's only made possible by the people who are actually doing it every day, to just say thank you. We appreciate you. Not everybody has to agree with everything that is happening. There is lots of room for discussion, for disagreement. That's why we live in this magnificent country that is challenged at this current moment. But I think here we should lift up those who are serving the public, who are committing to this work every day, and just know that those of us here who see you and appreciate you and just want you to know how much we are glad to have you working on behalf of the public. So I'll close with that and just express my appreciation again and just thank you for all of your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Friedson. Now I'll go turn to Council Vice President Jawando.
Thank you, Mitra, for the clapping. That was really good. Ditto, and I'll say thank you for all your work that you've done. I often say, what are the things that people love about Montgomery County the most? Schools and parks. Planning's you're in a tough spot. Yeah. You don't have all the fancy things to show, but you are part of park and planning, so that accrues to you too. There you go. Exactly right. And it didn't just happen that way. It's because people are using the facilities and they appreciate what we have here. It's why people come here. Really, really appreciate all the work that you all do. Excited to see the updates, and excited about things moving forward. I do have two. I'll be brief. I have one question for each of you related to some of the updates that you've given. You mentioned the work around Little Falls. That's something obviously a lot of us have gotten a lot of questions around for the last several years. Excited to hear that you're thinking early December completion and start of demolition next week, right? I think it's important, just so people know the process, that, the council voted in January of 2004 on the approved thing, approved use. I think the National Park and Planning Commission approved it in September of last year. Could you just give folks a sense of what's happened? Because that's a question I get a lot. Is like, okay, whether you're happy about it or not, why is it taking so long to get to where we need to go? And so what's happened in the last year or so since that final approval?
Thank you for asking this question. Yes, the council approved this that January. And when I say this, one thing y'all very familiar with the project and the process, but what the council actually approved was a project that included modifications that had been requested by the community. So community input was very much considered in the approval of the project. The council did not approve the project as the Parks Department had presented it. It changed it in response to the community. And then, of course, after that approval, we began the process of going to the National Capital Planning Commission, because this land was purchased many years ago with Capper-Crampton funds. So we are required for changes in use to seek approval from the National Capital Planning Commission. It's not something we normally have to do, but in this instance we did. That is a process that takes a while. It's got its own public process, in addition to the one that we have at the Planning Board and the Council. And then after that approval, we had to move forward with final design and the seeking of permits, which can just take some time. So that is kind of what's been happening behind the scenes, is basically the Parks Department just moving forward with the process expeditiously. We've tried very much to keep this project moving, because we know it's important to get it done. The community has been in some kind of limbo. We were also unable to make some needed sort of normal repairs to the roadway, because we've been in this kind of holding pattern, which again is why we are, as we go in and make the permanent changes to the roadway as envisioned in our project design, also taking the opportunity to completely rehabilitate that stretch of roadway so that we don't have to come back.
I appreciate that. And that's kind of since September of last year, that process, that's what you've been going through, and that's where, and you think December's a firm date.
Well, let me put it this way. It really better be. I'm really pushing hard.
I agree.
I mean, there are things that are sometimes, when we can get the surveyor in, when we can, construction is its own thing. And so my staff is always very nervous about giving me a date, but we understand the importance of completing this project timely.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. And to Mr. Sartori and on the planning side, really appreciate your presentation, our continued conversations. I've been fortunate enough, you kind of shook me a little bit when you said, the new council members in 15 months. I was like, I'll be one of the ones that's gone, along with all my fellow gentlemen up here. So it kind of puts things into context. I've been fortunate to spend all my time on the council working with you in one capacity or another. One of the things that we've talked about privately and publicly is engagement with the community. And you mentioned it in I noticed it might have informed some of your opening remarks. So I'm glad that made it in there. And as I said, in addition to you having a tough job because you don't have the parks, it's not fair. It's not fair to go after, but I know you guys switch every year. So that's all that happened here. Have you taken anything away from the last year or two on the public engagement side about how we might improve and continue to improve? And I want to note, like I always do, we've come leaps and bounds since I started on the then Fed committee in 2019 for how we engage and try to engage residents. You're doing a lot more. The Planning Academy is another example of that, another very successful example of the interest for a very arcane set of issues. But I think we can and need to continue to do more. And so, I'll give you a couple of examples. I know in some places they use, and we've used these in some certain instances, advisory panels, advisory boards that include multi-sector folks. We did it in the Bethesda Minor Master Plan. I think it worked really well. That's obviously a different type of plan. So I want to ask you if there's any reflection or anything you're thinking about to get in, and we've talked about some of this, to get deeper levels and more meaningful participatory engagement from the community, realizing no one's ever going to agree. I often say, Michelle Jawando, 20 years together, she doesn't agree with me probably more than half the time. But can you talk about what you're doing and how you guys are continuing to strive in that area?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that question because it's really important when we talk about engagement. I will say that with every project that we work on, every master plan we work on, we take time to reflect afterwards on what worked, what didn't work so well, and why do we think it didn't work, what can we do differently, what do we want to pass on to the next project or another one that's currently underway. And, it's interesting. We're seeing things that worked a year ago are suddenly not working quite as well. So it's really important for us to go door to door and talk to people, but a lot of people right now don't want to open their doors. And so that's a changing dynamic for us. And how do we engage people who don't typically participate in the process? Then we're trying to be out in the community with them. And so one of the things we're focusing on is going to events, going to places. You saw a picture at a bus stop, going to the bus stops and having conversations with people who are there. To try to get their perspectives, their ideas on things. I will just highlight with regard to advisory panels. We do incorporate advisory groups and panels with a lot of the work that we do. A lot of times we kind of focus those groups and the feedback we get from them as the experts on a particular topic. Whether it's housing, we might involve people from different related agencies at the department, in the county. We've kind of moved away from the idea of having the community advisory panels that we had years ago for our master plan efforts. And we've heard some people talk about the need to get back to that. The problem with that was that it really consolidated a lot of the power and influence on a master plan process and the master plan recommendations in a small select group of people from the community, which tended to always be the ones that were already active and already had their voices heard. And so by doing some of these other engagement types of tactics in the community, it has allowed us to hear from a more diverse group of people and incorporate more diverse ideas into our plans. I think what you mentioned, the Community Planning Academy, this is a really big thing. Giving people the tools, the knowledge that they need to be able to, which is one, what do some of these words mean? What is the process? What is that? How does it play out? And then showing them where they get the opportunities to participate in that process and giving them the tools that they need to be able to do that effectively. We don't tell people what to think. We just show them how they can participate and share their thoughts. The other thing about it is, I mean, we are unbelievably diverse as a county, and we've got people speaking so many different languages. And so how do we, share the information that we have in as many languages as possible? And so, we're trying to find ways to translate things to more languages. The Community Planning Academy will be available in multiple languages, so people can consume it and learn in their native language, and it makes it easier for them to be able to learn and participate in the process. So a lot of that is like, how do we just be more responsive and understanding of the diverse county that we have, and how we connect with more people. Those are the types of things we're trying to focus in on.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and just a couple things. On the panels, I think that's why you have to have a multi-sector, right? So what are the things you hear about the most? You hear about infrastructure concerns, overcrowding schools. Like, I'm literally suggesting, like, those members of those entities of schools, WSSC, like, with community to talk about a plan here. I think you're going to get different answers and different feedback and different information, because there's been times in planning, housing, and parks where I've asked, well, did you check on this? And you guys can't check on everything because you're not everything. You don't know what the water capacity is on whatever, but the person, WSSC, might be at the table and know. And so it's just something to think about as we structure our engagement and give feedback. The other thing I was talking about with Chair Harris just the other day was the strategy of the engagement, like the pre-planning and funding that goes into how do we engage and thinking about it. And I know you've started that, but I just think that's really important. Like, what are we trying to get out of this? Who are we trying to hear from? And making sure you have the resources and the time to do that.
Sure. I think one of the greatest things that we do and that no one sees when a project begins, our communications and engagement team meets with the project manager and the leadership of the folks who are working on that project to prepare a communications plan. And that plan is multiple pages long that talks about what are the key points, what are the key things that we need to be aware of in this area, but then who do we want to make sure we're connecting with? What are different strategies we might employ to make those connections? And this all happens before we even start with a scope. We're ready to start, and we work on that all the way through. And we constantly, our communications team is always reminding us, hey, go back to the communications plan. It really does help guide how we engage. The other thing I would say is one of the reference that you made earlier was many of you have seen the image that we show, the Venn diagram of how we get to the planning recommendations that we might have in a plan. It's kind of 3 different overlapping circles. One is what we hear from the community, the other is our planning expertise, and the other is external input, whether it's studies or other experts. The interesting thing is it's not as simple as that. That in some cases, as you've pointed out in our conversations, some cases, one of those has a larger influence than the others. And that's because it needs to be that way because it's a safety issue or because, you know what, we care more here about what the community thinks than about some of the other things that might be a factor. But then even within those circles, you have different views. So the community input, there is no one community voice. And you all know this quite well. But you know, so you've got, as I was talking before about corridors, different people come to it from different perspectives. But even people who have the same exact perspective, my neighbor and I might have completely different thoughts on what our neighborhood should be like, but we come from it from the same perspective. But we've got people coming from all different perspectives. So the concern about isolating, talking to one person to represent one part of a community is that you're only getting really that one person. So no matter how much they're there to represent their perspective and we're not hearing from them all. So yes, from the experts, we'd like to hear from people from the different agencies, and that's where we'll pull together an advisory group from other, these county agencies or WSSC or however. But when we're talking about the community, we want to be hearing from as many voices as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you both for your work.
Thank you. Councilmember Malcolm.
So thank you for being here, and I'll just pick up from where Council Vice President ended, and that's the community voice. And I appreciate your point of there is no one community voice, and so I know that you do a great job of trying to get that, and I just think it's really difficult in some of our areas where there isn't a culture of speaking out. And I know that's very difficult. So I just want to start with many, many thank yous. The public hearing in Germantown for the Clarksburg Master Plan was so important. And it was great to see a room full of people on screen to be there. That was great. And then also from the perspective of being where the people are, you had a full team of staff at the Germantown Oktoberfest for 5 or 6 hours on Saturday. And as one of the most diverse communities in the nation, we had a lot of people come by the tent. So I appreciate you being there. It's so important and very welcoming, very easy. You just write on a sticky note, plop it on the board, and so I appreciate that. And then just sticking with planning, I just thank you for the work on the housing pipeline. It's so important to have the facts out there, and even though there's housing in the pipeline, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be built for so many reasons. And so I think as much factual information as we can get to the community about what is the status of our housing pipeline is so critical. So so thank you for that. And on to parks, I'm just so thrilled about the 2 parks that you mentioned in the Up-County. Of course, the Royce Hansen Conservation Park, that's very exciting for so many reasons. And just what an honor for Royce to be recognized in this way, in a way that's meaningful to him, and as our leader in the AgReserve. But Ovid Hazen Wells. So for many people don't know the history of the carousel that has been in Wheaton for so many years. Thank you for taking care of it. But that historic carousel belongs to Clarksburg and always has belonged to Clarksburg. And from the very, very beginning of my tenure, the Clarksburg community has never, ever let me forget that it is their carousel. And that is just so exciting. Not only the carousel, but the playground and the skate park. So thank you so much for moving that forward. And I look forward to a couple of ribbon cuttings in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Katz.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Thank you all for everything that you do as well. And thank you for the presentation. I always need to point out, I believe, that my district, the 3rd district, is the least affected by, in some ways, by what you do because of the municipalities having their own planning and zoning. But the community certainly is affected because of the parks programs and not everybody, even me, doesn't necessarily stop at the municipal border. Every now and then you drive a little further or go a little further. And as far as the community outreach, we certainly have heard that when you have meetings, you don't necessarily listen. We hear that about ourselves too. I mean, don't feel special on that, but you know, and to the points earlier, it would be helpful to me, and I think probably helpful to you, is if you would list out when you're doing a plan and how it started out, and then you had your town hall meetings or whatever, bus stop discussions, and then how it changed. And I think the public would appreciate knowing that as well, because they say, yeah, they had that meeting, but they didn't listen. Well, that's not, first, I'm not listening doesn't mean you didn't agree. You're not always going to agree. I always remember way back when Gaithersburg started the program for the 6 pillars, and Ed Bohr, who was mayor at the time, said one of them is not agreement. I mean, you can be trustworthy, you can be honest, you can do all of these things, but we still might disagree. People have that ability. And I think it would also be helpful if you could give examples of when people are talking about the safety changes for an area in University Boulevard, whatever. Of course, that comes to mind. But if you could, it would also be helpful if you explained what could be done with no zoning changes and no building. What safety changes could it be done without any of that? And I think, first off, it's necessary for us to know that because we need safety changes that are going to happen much faster than we're going to have zoning changes. And even if you have a zoning change, you don't have the development. So I think those things are very necessary, not only for the public, but also for our budgets and for our friends in the state who could also do it. The other topic, of course, is affordable housing. And I continue to be concerned that we changed the word affordable to attainable, and that is a concern to me. And people, when we talk about even attainable housing, well, if you build more, it'll be less expensive. I don't know that that's necessarily true. And I think I always believe we should do it in reverse. I believe we should say what we want as the cost, the price of that affordable home. And then in reverse, say how we're going to get there. Because I don't know that we really have a handle on that. We talk about the percentage of the percentage, and that's helpful, but that doesn't get us there. And I think it would be helpful to the public and certainly to me if you could do that. If you could do it in reverse. Say we want, and I don't know what the price of that house would be anymore, both rental or to buy, but if it's a $400,000 house, how are we getting to that $400,000 house in that area while we're doing these master plans or whatever we're doing? And I also think it would be necessary for when we're talking about the pipelines before. Many times when an employee leaves an organization, we do an interview, an exit interview with them. And I always believe that might be a little too late. I mean, if you really wanted them to stay, then you should have done that a little earlier maybe. But the fact that we do it, I think twofold. Number one, if something is not being done, we need to find out why. And some of it is the market and some of it is whatever. We talk about the rent stabilization, but that's not stopping somebody from building a house for sale. I mean, regardless of what the rental would be. I mean, most people, especially single family. So I think it would be helpful if we interviewed, and you're doing some of that, if we interviewed people. And I also think it's important to check in along the way. Sometimes it makes people say, you know what, I wasn't going to do it, but maybe I will now. And I think that becomes important too. There should be a spot on somebody's calendar who's following that project to say, let me call the XYZ Corporation and find out where we are and where we aren't and what's happening with it. I think in many cases, for so long, Montgomery County and all of us, but for so long, Montgomery County didn't have to do anything in such a way, a nice way, because we were going to get employment. We were going to get all of these things just by geographics. Those days are gone. And we need to make certain that we are being the friendliest government. And so I think that becomes necessary. And there again, I thank you for everything you do, and I turn it back to you, Madam President.
Sure. I just want to say first, I want to note we listen to people from Gaithersburg as well. And so I'm going to show you, starting right now here. We appreciate. I appreciate the comments, and we'll take all of those in. And one thing I wanted to highlight, one of the values I think that we've gotten out of the pipeline analysis is that some of these projects have been were approved so long ago, and the context that we had for them are no longer with the company or no longer representing them. And so it was really helpful. I mean, it took a while because we were trying to track down who is responsible for this project at this point. We have better information now to be able to, one of the things we'd like to do is to remain in more frequent contact with them to check on the status. What's going on? What is it right now that you could potentially need to move this project along? So hopefully this is something we, kind of build off of to be in more regular contact with them.
Thank you.
Great. Next, Councilmember Albanaz.
Thank you, Madam President. So I look forward to this presentation every 6 months. Thank you all so much. And there's so many things to be proud of. And you all have dynamic, incredible teams. We're all familiar with them and have the opportunity to work with them and engage with them in so many different ways. So congratulations on the fantastic work. I just had a couple of points and a couple of questions, and I'll try to be brief. Ms. Figueredo, this is a point and then a question. So the Maryland Soccerplex, which is a public-private partnership, of course, handled independently and privately, but on park land, every 2 years does an economic impact analysis and study. And it's extraordinary, the economic impact that facility, incredible complex, is having in our community between hotel stays, restaurant visits, et cetera. It's over $10 million annually. Has the Parks Department ever done an economic impact study on the department? Because I suggest, if you haven't, that you consider it, because the return on investment goes beyond just emotional and social well-being. I think it is having an economic impact too in our community, which we all have recognized has to be a highest possible priority moving forward to get us out of the rut that we're in. Any thoughts on that?
I know that there are ways that parks departments calculate return on investment. We've never, I don't believe we've ever engaged anyone to do an economic analysis, but that is something that, I think we could look into, because we certainly believe that some of what we provide, the value's incalculable in terms of people's well-being and sense of community, but some of it maybe can be measured in economic terms. As an example, we are expecting that the Wheaton Action Sports Park will have an economic impact in Montgomery County. I think that would be a good idea to look into. Thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, it might be worth following up with our Office of Legislative Oversight and maybe partnering with MCEDC, because this is something we can use as a tool to attract more businesses here and retain the ones that we have, just to emphasize the incredible amenities that we have. In our last session 6 months ago, we saw the writing on the wall with the new administration coming in, and it's been worse than we thought it was going to be at the federal level. And so the contributions that Parks makes to our behavioral health and mental health are well documented, and what you all did during COVID has been nationally recognized and recognized by this council. We had talked a little bit about partnerships with HHS and Ms. Monica Martin, and how is that going? How are we aligning with the Department of Health and Human Services in particular, and the Department of Recreation, to be more intentional about providing those mental health opportunities and safe spaces for our community?
Well, we work with the Department of Recreation all the time. In terms of working directly with HHS, I would have to check on the status of that, but I will tell you that our staff absolutely do programming around mental health, like specifically our program access team. That's a focus of theirs as well. And, we also believe that just access to nature and the outdoors, it's well documented that has a positive impact on health. But to your point, could we be more intentional about programming and partnering? Yes, I think we probably could, and that's something I need to follow up on again. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you know, I have 4 kids. I spend a lot of time in our parks and a lot of time on our athletic fields. I just want to commend you for the work that you're doing in those spaces as well. I've seen tremendous improvement in those areas as well. And At some point, I want to follow up on our conversations about adding more lighting to athletic fields, which I think can help address not all, but at least some of the challenges that we're facing with supply and demand. But any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we have much more demand for athletic fields than we have athletic fields. And it's hard to find space for additional athletic fields. It's not that we're not, looking to bring more of them online, but we have to make sure that the ones we have are more than carrying their weight in terms of meeting the need. And one way to increase capacity is definitely to add lighting. We are looking at doing that. We light our we don't light all of our game-only fields in regional and rec parks, but those are the fields that we light. And so I think there is a delta there, and we're moving in that direction of trying to add more lighting. Of course, it's a funding issue, but it also is a capacity issue. So I believe we have, I know that we're doing work on our athletic field user policy, and at the same time, I think we're looking at opportunities to add more lighting.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. Mr. Satori, thank you so much for your leadership. We're both Terps. And so just to expand on the community engagement, because it is such a critical component, just during Vision 2050, I think you'll recall that the council hit the pause button because we had received so much concern from so many people. And this, of course, was done during COVID. So the planning department was limited in what it could do in terms of community engagement. But we ended up soliciting a third-party contractor who was an expert in community engagement, particularly with harder-to-reach communities. And although we still had opposition and concern and the feedback wasn't all positive, there was positive feedback about the additional community engagement. My question is, do you do all of your community engagement in-house, or do you ever contract out with third-party agencies to assist you to get to more people?
I was going to say yes and yes, but I guess it's no and yes. So no, we don't do it all in-house. We do a lot of it. We do a lot of the planning of it in-house and the kind of coordinating of it, but we do engage consultants to help us with the engagement. Sometimes it's for translation services. Sometimes it's for the door-to-door knocking. It is that takes a lot of work. But also when, a lot of the events that you see around the Long Branch Festival, when we were there, we had folks with a consultant that were working with us who bring additional language capacity and also just skills in the kind of engagement environment.
I appreciate that. Go ahead, Ms. Rivera.
Well, I was just going to add, the same is true for us. I mean, we do a lot of work in-house, and we can't engage in a consultant for every project. But when we know we have a project in an area where there's a community that's maybe harder to reach, or there are some special challenges, we use some of the same consultants that the planning department uses.
And your in-house team is amazing, but they're doing that in addition to all of their everyday responsibilities, which can be challenging because there are only so many hours in a workday. Just last point on that is, I've been around a long time, and so the cross collaboration with other sister county agencies often helps. So if there are efforts by HHS through our health promoters, if there are efforts through MCPS right now in the boundary study and analysis that's going on, there are different ways and different avenues that we can do this, so you're not always having to do it by yourselves. And I know you do regularly reach out to your sister county agencies and form partnerships and alliances, but it feels like we can be even more intentional about that to sort of raise all boats, because our community is often overwhelmed by this information. It's confusing, and the Academy's a fantastic concept and idea. If we can take that to scale, I think it's going to make an impact. But if we can be more intentional about forming cross-collaborative teams to share and disseminate information, I think it'd be very helpful.
I think that's a really good point, and I would highlight, I mentioned that one of our 5 priorities is, I said, our employees, and then the communities that we serve. But it's more than the communities we serve. If you actually looked at it, it says, and our partners. And that's a really important priority for us, and it's at all different levels. So ensuring that our staff, are at a project level, are working collaboratively with our agency partners, but also at a higher level. So just recently, we had some of our senior staff had meetings with the members of the board of the MCEDC. And we were talking about just how our work can be more integrated in the work that they do. And it was interesting to realize that when they are trying to attract businesses to here, they weren't even fully aware of the expedited plans that we have and how that could be a selling point for some of the work that they're doing. And so the more conversations that we're having, the better. And the other thing I would point out, MCPS under their leadership now, it's just been outstanding, the amount of collaboration that we've had. Again, we've done this for years throughout, but just even seeing the work on the Community Planning Academy, they really embraced helping us put together a module that talks about their planning process and how it interrelates with ours, because that's really where a lot of people in our community get first involved through their schools and the concerns that they see there. And so it was great to collaborate with them on that.
Appreciate that. I yield back to you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next we have Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you, Madam President. And that was refreshing to hear. And I want to say ditto to my colleagues' comments regarding lighting, which I know in particular in our up-county areas has been challenging, especially where you already have kids, families who have to, for lack of a better term, schlep around to get to their sporting things at night after work. A lot of those groups that are teams based in Montgomery County end up using fields in Frederick County and Howard County in order to be able to get lighted fields for use. So it would be great to be able to keep our MoCo-based teams in MoCo for their practices. And I too am excited about the carousel's return. That park happens to that's like the border of our district. And so that is super exciting. And I want to say thank you for your ongoing collaboration with parks for my requests for bocce courts. I can't ever let an update pass without saying, hey, progress is being made. So for those of you who have been at a Special Olympics event, you know that is a key activity for our Special Olympians. It's also part of our MCPS PE and sports curriculum. And it's an inclusive sport that anyone of any age and ability can play. And I know Councilmember Katz had to step out, but I got him to play, which was really exciting. And for all of your assistance with the Johnson's Local Park and Historic Emery Grove development projects. It's complex, it's comprehensive. There's a lot going on and there are a lot of stakeholders, but your patience has been greatly appreciated and your advocacy on behalf of the possible and making sure we're acknowledging the past of those places while looking forward to the future is really important. So thank you for setting the right tones and being such a good partner to me and my office and to the folks in Emery Grove on that project. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Mink.
Thank you. First, I wanted to thank you for highlighting Emma's bike bus. It's very fun. Anybody who, it doesn't matter if it's your district or not, or come by, it's super fun. We've ridden with them several times. My kids have really enjoyed it. The whole community gets in on it, and you will definitely come away saying, I want to help make more of these happen in my neighborhoods. The music, the bubbles, it's all the cars are smiling and happy as they sit at the stop signs for several minutes waiting for all the kids to go by. It's really, really wonderful. So thank you so much for lifting that up. I did want to note on the development side, just important to note that when rent stabilization was passed, that one of the things that we knew at the time, a pattern that has been seen that we were aware of, is a temporary drop in the development as developers evaluate the market conditions, understandably, some pause development and simultaneously lobby for the law to be rolled back or watered down. And then over a brief period of time, they they either return or others take advantage of the opportunity to move into the market space. So really important to keep an eye on it, of course, but it's also been a very short period of time, and that is an effect that has been seen in other places. So a market impact was expected, and that's of course before the other factors that you mentioned, which are also important to keep in mind. Also, the federal instability, the tariffs, the job losses, associated potential population shifts out of the area as a result of that. Which we're seeing reflected, of course, in other markets around the area as well. So just wanted to be very careful not to assign causation, especially beyond a temporary status when we don't know yet what that's going to look like in the longer term, and especially when that's legislation that is having such a tangible impact on the quality of life, on the safety and well-being of our residents. Of course, I have a lot of renters in my district, and as we know, it resulted in a 70% drop in troubled properties, and that's an area where we've really struggled to create a meaningful impact for years. So just want to make sure that we're being really careful and thoughtful around that, but appreciate that certainly it's something that we'll want to keep an eye on. Shifting to field use policy, another fun question. Just wanted to check in on that. I know that's something that you all are always thinking about. To what degree are you looking at field use policies, considering those issues with lack of field space for the smaller and newer field users, equity issues? Obviously, as you know, this is something that folks in my district are very concerned about, but I know this is something that you all have also been putting a lot of thought into, so I wanted to check in on that conversation.
Yes, thank you. So park staff have been working on an update to our field use policy for some time now, and it did involve a lot of outreach to the leagues, because obviously we didn't want to move forward with any kind of recommended change without their input. We are ready and plan to bring something to the board later this fall. The main issue around field use is, of course, how do you fairly allocate a limited supply of something that has a very high demand? And one of the biggest issues is the priority, or what used to be called, I think, prior use policy, which meant that larger, more established leagues, more economically sound leagues could reserve a lot of field time, could almost exclusively use a particular field based on the fact that they had used it in prior years. And the issue with this is, of course, newer leagues that aren't so well funded, having trouble getting access to fields. And how do you balance the need for predictability on the part of the leagues that depend on certain fields with also, we serve the public. We are a public agency. These are public assets, and making sure that others also have access to them. And it's a difficult balance to strike. We are going to be bringing some recommendations to the planning board that I think attempt to strike the correct balance. There may be some who might not be happy with where we land, but we've done a lot of work to get to where we are. And there will be, obviously, opportunity for comment once this comes to the board. But we're hoping to address some of those challenges: fairness, equity, problems with ghost permitting, all of those things with an update to our policy. We are in the middle of a 30-day public comment period right now.
Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you.
I could see the leaning over in the camera.
In the behind you. That's great. Okay, great. So, so we'll probably want to send something out about that as well. Yeah. So that's a great flag. Thanks very much. And then it's great to hear about the collaboration with MCPS. Also, obviously near and dear to my heart. And so if there's anything else you'd like to share about that and about those conversations and how they have progressed, that would be great as well.
So I don't have too much more of an update. We have for a number of years been meeting on a regular basis at a staff level to just ensure that we're keeping each other updated on our different things we have going on. I think one of the things you'll see is that they've been more receptive and understanding of some of the work that we've done in terms of our housing needs and where we expect housing to go, and the analysis that we've done on enrollments and utilization and are taking somewhat of a different perspective on the needs of the school system from a capital perspective that I think we'll be seeing over the next few years, which I think is good.
Yeah.
And if I may, Councilmember May, I do not want to be outdone by the planning department in terms of MCPS.
She never could be.
We work with MCPS quite a bit too, in some really great ways in terms of partnering with internships and educational programs, but also very obviously we have a certain number of shared park school sites, and we also have taken on renovation and management, maintenance of over 100 elementary and middle school fields. So we have a longstanding relationship with MCPS, but sometimes some of the challenges come where there's not adequate communication between us and MCPS in terms of parkland that is adjoining a school site. Recently, I do want to mention someone from MCPS, someone new, who was, I know they've been doing some reorganization there, but she's, I believe, in charge of facilities for MCPS and planning and construction. I think her name is Andrea Swiatocha, I think. And I mentioned her because she very refreshingly reached out to us and said, hey, we want to proactively sit down with you and talk about the challenges that we have working together. And it's been very positive as a preliminary conversation. And so I'm really hopeful that we have like a little bit of a reset, if you will, and that's going to be, very productive for us going forward, make things run more smoothly.
Great. Maybe a topic for a future joint session.
Yeah, and in terms of collaboration, we are working behind the scenes, working with many of the county agencies on collaboration. 2 weeks ago, we met with DPS. We're talking about some things we could do together, and we meet with MCDOT regularly. So maybe then in our next semi-annual, we can highlight more and more about some of the collaboration we're doing with some of the county agencies.
That's great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone else in the queue. I also want to say thank you to the Montgomery Parks Foundation representatives who are here today, because along with our staff and our planning board and everyone, it takes a lot to move forward to make sure we have the most incredible parks that we have and the incredible planning department that we have. So I just want to extend my thanks once again to all of you. Please extend our thanks to each of your departments and staff for all the work that they do day in and day out for the county, and we really appreciate it. And Chair Harris and members of the planning board, thank you for being here today. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. All right, with that, we will now move on to item number 2, which is action on a resolution to approve the FY27 capital budget and the FY27 to FY32 capital improvements program spending affordability guidelines. There was a Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee meeting on this on September 25th. As we're switching seats, I will, as chair of that committee, give an update. Today, the council is going to vote on a resolution, as I said, to approve the SAG, the spending affordability guidelines. Per our code, the council must adopt these guidelines by resolution by the first Tuesday in October in each odd number calendar year, which takes us to today. As stated in the name of the spending affordability guidelines, we are directed in the code to look at affordability for these guidelines, not need. We discuss need when we do our budget discussions in the spring. And by evaluating and setting appropriate debt levels every 2 years, the council preserves the county's fiscal health and manages the amount of general funds required for debt service. As a reminder, the GO bonds are just one way that we fund our capital improvement projects, and when we do take out the GO bonds, they are debt that we have for 20 years. Since the economic indicators were last reviewed in February of 2025, we have seen some improvements that the committee went over. We also discussed during the committee, though, that there are still many unknowns that we are facing, and we are in the midst of a government shutdown. Given the discussion and the review of the economic indicators and assumptions, the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee did vote to increase the county's borrowing authority at this time. We were presented by the staff with 3 options, and we went with option B. The committee's recommendation would set the CIP spending affordability guidelines at $300 million per year, or $1.8 billion over the 6-year period for the general obligation bonds, and $9 million per year, or $54 million over the 6-year period for park and planning bonds. I will note that Councilmember Katz did express a preference for keeping the current guidelines, but did not object voting with the rest of the committee to increase. So we do have a unanimous recommendation from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. Also, just a note, given the uncertain times we are living in right now, that the council will have an opportunity to review these CIP spending affordability guidelines again before the first Tuesday in February. And according to the county code, revisions to the SAG should reflect a significant change in conditions regarding affordability. After the February deadline, the council can adopt an aggregate capital budget and 6-year CIP that has expenditures that exceed the guidelines, but only with 8 or more affirmative votes. So we have a unanimous recommendation from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee to increase our SAG. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Lachenko and Mr. Neum for anything I missed.
Thank you very much. Given that we are a little bit behind in time, we will be very concise with, we do have some background slides that I think will help the full council get the perspective that the committee got at its meeting, but we can go through these very, very quickly and get to the meat of the issue, which is the options you were talking about. First, we do want to emphasize that the guidelines are based on what we believe the county can afford. The financial metrics we'll talk about focus on that, not what we would call need or what people would like to see in the CIP going forward. I mean, this is in some ways an informal beginning of the council's review of the CIP, but the discussion of items we want to put in the CIP and all the elements of that are for later. Today, the focus really is on what we feel is reasonable to accept as an affordability paradigm for that. And we look at both qualitative and quantitative. The metrics we have are very quantitative based and long-standing, but also as the council president mentioned, you've got the broader conditions out there in the world that the council needs to consider and the uncertainties. So going forward, we did want to just remind the council that given this is the first Tuesday in October of an odd-numbered year, the council is responsible for approving spending affordability guidelines for the that will impact the FY 27 through 32 CIP. Specifically, what you're approving are for both general obligation bonds and park and planning bonds. You're approving the maximum amount for years 1 and years 2, and also the 6-year total. And then because obviously the 6-year total has implications for those other years, staff will present its options showing what those numbers would look like in those other years that are not explicitly approved by the council. And also, as the council president mentioned, in February of each year, the council can reconsider the guidelines. There is language is noted that there should be a significant change in economic conditions to create the reasons for a change, but the council can look at that and within some limitations. There is a 10% limitation on what could be increased in years 1 and 2. There is no restriction on the 6-year total. And then, of course, in May of each year, when the council does its final budget actions, the council can, with 8 votes, exceed the guidelines if it finds that its actions that it agrees upon for the CIP, for instance, would exceed the guidelines. Just real quickly, some context, and this informs also the options we have today. These numbers shown here are prior year CIPs and the spending affordability guidelines assumed in them. And most notably, you can see the first couple of lines, you see the $340 million per year in general obligation bonds assumed. And at that time, and you can then see as you get to the third line, you start to see the numbers drop. That was intentional by the council at that time. They were seeing the financial metrics starting to get worse. And given the CIP is a long-term process, it takes a long time for the numbers to move up and down. It takes a long time to change the direction of a trend. The council explicitly at that time wanted to start ratcheting down the annual totals assumed for general obligation bonds. And you can see that the council did that. Starting in FY19 through 24 to the present, it went from that $340 million per year total to a $280 million per year total, which we are at today and which we've been for the past several years. That's what's enabled us to look at the metrics now and what the committee looked at and be able to consider some potential changes going forward. So this is the slide with the options on it that the committee considered. And in particular, you see option A, which is let's keep things the way they are for both general obligation bonds and for park and planning bonds. So those two options are fairly simple. Those numbers match what's in the approved CIP. Basically, you'd be extending those out another couple of years. Option B is a staff-generated proposal, and this is what the committee ultimately went with, was a marginal increase in the annual totals. And you can see the boxed areas, once again, are those areas that are actually approved in the guidelines, and then years 29 through 32 are basically creating a rational extension of that across the 6 years to get you to the 6-year total, which the council would also be approving. And then the executive recommendation is option C. This was transmitted by the executive as part of this review process. And for the general obligation bonds, the executive recommended a significantly larger increase than the staff-generated option in option B. And then with park and planning bonds, option B represents what the feedback we heard from park and planning staff and what they felt was reasonable given their circumstances. And then also we do have the executive recommendation for those. So with that, we have some of the metrics we can go through very quickly, or if the council would like to focus on some questions now, we can do that, whatever the pleasure of the council is at this point.
See, Council Vice President Jawando has a question.
Thank you. Appreciate the GO Committee's work. It just related to the points you brought up, in the chart that we had when I started on the council, it was much higher. GO bonds, obviously, the bang for your buck goes down. Things don't cost the same, obviously, and this is not related to need, it's related to the indicators. But there's the real world implication of you can build less schools and roads and everything when money costs less and the numbers going down. I was happy to see and appreciate the work that we went up slightly, the recommendations go up slightly, appreciate staff's work. Just wanted to provide both our staff and the executive staff the opportunity to just talk about the indicators just briefly about why the executive made the recommendation he did and why we see things rosier than they once were.
Sure, thank you. Rachel Silberman with the Office of Management and Budget. As you can see reflected in the materials from council staff, our affordability metrics are the best that they have looked in the last 15 years. A good portion of that is due to the increase reflected in fiscal 26 in the approved operating budget and the approved 6-year fiscal plan, the increase in the general fund revenues. So the county executives proposed spending affordability guidelines at 340 and increasing by 3% in each year thereafter. We believe are affordable given the context of the improvement in the affordability metrics. Even with that increase, it remains within a 1/4 percentage point of that self-imposed 10% key metric of the debt service to general fund ratios. There was also some information provided in the county executive's memo concerning the conservative nature of that metric for the county. It as currently constructed, excludes key property tax revenues that support important county services like fire and rescue and mass transit and recreation that in some other jurisdictions in the state are included in that denominator. And so that information is just provided for context so the council can be aware of sort of the conservative nature of some of our metrics as they're constructed currently. So that's the background as far as where the executive branch is coming from on these recommendations.
I appreciate that. So you're saying that you think that's even a conservative number. To our staff, what will we know different by January, February that would make you feel, well, that would make everybody, not just you, but feel more confident that that number is sustainable, or that we could change it in one direction or the other? Just talk about those metrics.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that there's no absolute right answer here.
Of
There's
course,
a lot
yeah.
of moving parts, and of course, we're looking at a 6-year time frame, but the world goes on beyond that, and whatever decisions we make now will also impact our affordability issues beyond FY32. So certainly, any increase, staff felt that option B reflected a reasonable increase given the metrics, and once again, we can talk about the metrics. It also would have a much lower impact going forward and beyond 6 years than the executive recommendation would. Some of the uncertainties looking ahead, I mean, you've talked a lot about them in the prior agenda item. And how much more information will we have in January, February? Who knows? We're not sure.
Will the government be open or not, right?
We don't know. I mean, some information you will have, which is certainly related, and we talked about need versus affordability. At that point, you will have CIP recommendations from the executive. We're not sure where the executive will go in terms of funding, but given it's a full CIP year, we do expect the agencies and the executive to be considering everything on the table.
Yeah. Can I just interrupt? Ms. Feldman, you gave, when we did the government operations and fiscal policy, I think you responded to this question similarly to what you did during the budget about the timing of some of the information we'll have later this fall, if you wanted to reiterate that for the full council.
Sure. Nancy Feldman, Department of Finance. The key pieces of information that we're hoping that we will have as it relates to the impact of the actions of the federal government even before the shutdown with respect to layoffs and expenditure reductions, grants and other things, and the impact on our employment and our income tax and our just overall economic well-being here in both Montgomery County and in the region. We expect to start seeing some of that information. Hopefully it's better than we think it might be, probably by the end of November. As you know, we will be doing an update for the revenue forecast before council finishes the session in December, at which point if there's something that has materialized that's factual in its basis, we will have to take that into account. So end of November, early December is where we expect to start seeing some real data should the government be open and we actually get data. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any other questions. We have a motion from the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee. Those in favor of the recommendation, please raise your hand. And that is everyone present. All right. Next is item 3. Oh, thank you to our staff. Thank you, Ms. Silverman. Thank you. Sorry, I think I'm getting hungry. Not to rush you along, but appreciate all the work. And I know we'll be revisiting it. Thank you, the Council Vice President Jawando, for his questions on that item. Next is item 3, which is the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Council Vice President Jawando, Council Member Sales, Councilmember Balcom, I'll turn to her.
Thank you. I know we're running late. I just wanted to pull out item 3E on the consent calendar. This is the resolution to confirm the county executive's appointment to the library board. Several times over the past 3 years, I've brought up the issue of geographic representation on boards, committees, and commissions. We have an OLO report confirming the lack of geographic representation, and we have a task force currently looking into the entire process for boards, committees, and commissions. I appreciate Council President's support in this matter. And I read through every resolution that we receive, and it's exhausting to continually see disparities between our communities. It's rare that there is any type of geographic balance, and I have been patient and waiting for the results and recommendations from the task force, which has been delayed. But this one stands out. For the library board, there are 13 unaffiliated members. 5 are from Silver Spring, 4 are from Bethesda, meaning 9 of 13 of people for the library board are from 2 areas in the county. And the library board, they provide community input to the county executive on all kinds of matters, including acquisitions, locations for future libraries, book collections, and this one stood out, services to outlying areas, outlying districts. We cannot say that we have broad representation on our boards if we're not hearing from people across the entire county. And I really want to underscore that I am not objecting to any of the nominees, but to the overall roster. If 9 of 13 people are coming from 2 communities, there's no room for other opinions. So I will not vote against any volunteers nominated here, but I can't vote for the slate. So I will abstain on this issue. Thank you.
Okay. So we'll pull that. So we have, I want to make sure I do this correctly. I'm looking at the clerk. We have, do we need a motion to pull? We can just pull it, right? From it. And then we have we're just going to pull item E. So what we have moved forward is a motion and a second for the consent calendar, but we're pulling out item E at the request of Councilmember Balcom. So all those in favor of the consent calendar, A through D and item F, please raise your hand. And that is everyone. Next, we have action on item 3E, which is the resolution to confirm the county executive's appointment to the library board. Would someone like to move that resolution? Councilmember Sales moved. Do I have a second? Council Vice President Jawando seconded. All those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hand. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed? Abstaining? We have 2 abstain, and 1 absent. Okay. Yes, Councilmember Mink.
I just wanted to say that I think that it's a super important point that Councilmember Balcom just raised, and I do very much thank all of the volunteers for these positions, and of course look forward to working closely with you. We appreciate you very much, I didn't want to say this before the vote to sway the vote, but I did want to show my support for this, for the important point that was raised, and express that this is something that we absolutely need to focus on remedying. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate both of that. And I'll just add, I am very frustrated also that we have not gotten this report or moved it forward after the excellent work from OLO. And while he's here, I just want to thank Frederick Hawkins, who on the consent calendar, we did just confirm as an appointment to the Commission on Juvenile Justice. And since he's been sitting here so patiently, I just wanted to tell him thank you and thank you to his service to the county. With that, we are now in recess to go get lunch, and we'll be back here at 1:30. Thank you, everyone.